I can't hear you, Paige.
You're muted.
Oh yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, we are here. We have a packed house moment. Sorry about that. I turned my mic off. But we are here, and here we go. This has been the most hyped up debate probably in the community for quite some time. As we have the team of JMANzLegit and DXP against Tom Willis and Hangman Charlie, or as I like to call it, the host of the Hangman Outcast versus two unlikely allies. But this is
what the fuck?
And already we're looking like it's going to be a handicap match.
Holla, holla, holla.
Well, I'd like to say thank you, Paige, for giving us the opportunity to come on your platform to finally put an end to this heated discussion. You know, I know we're not doing opening arguments yet, but I'd like to say I have a wonderful partner. He's educated, wise, beyond his years, and just around a good guy. So I'm proud to be here with Jordan Little, and may the best men win.
And Paige, I'm glad to be here as well with my wonderful co-hosts, Dad of the Year, Father of the Year, Husband of the Year.
Wow, this guy.
I know, right?
You should have heard him before the stream.
Co-host of the Year, one of the greatest men that ever lived on this earth, almost as great as Kevin Nash. He's just there. It's like him, me, and then Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
So we're right at that trio of awesomeness.
We're like the NWO, yeah.
Yeah, for life.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes.
For at least 5 minutes.
And I'm gonna just say this right now that this is absolutely the honor to be able to host this debate right here on this channel. And I thank all you guys for giving me the platform and the opportunity to do this. But anyways, I know that you guys, this has been a very heated discussion. I remember the last time on Hangman channel when we did his birthday special. This was a very interesting topic that came at hand. And Hangman got the victory, although I think some people were, the points were, I think a lot of people's minds may be a little lacking. But he pulled out the victory. But now, this is an even playing field. You got the two of you. This is going to be team action. Team debate. And in case you guys aren't aware, I have two judges, and I have two judges, and I'm filling in for number 3 because number 3 decided to not show up. But right now, I'm going to explain the stances really quickly. And then we'll go right into our opening arguments. So, right now, we have our opening stance. Right now, we have J-Man and Dan. They are on the against Kevin Nash side. Tom and Hangman are on the pro Kevin Nash side. It is simple as that. But right now, we give them each a chance to submit their opening arguments on their stance.
J-Man, do you mind if I go first, or do you want to?
You can go ahead. I mean, after all, let's do that in alphabetical order.
I appreciate that. Thank you, J-Man. You're honorable. Appreciate it. Thank you to the esteemed panel of judges. Thank you to Paige for hosting this. Thank you to our opponents in this. My name is Dan XP. My partner is Jordan Little. We're here to convey to you all that though Kevin Nash has made many great contributions to wrestling itself overall, I think that his influence on wrestling has caused a detriment. I think that he has been overhyped by many people, and he's been made to be greater than he really was. Today we are here to prove, without a shadow of a doubt, that his legacy will always be somewhat tarnished by his actions, not only inside, but outside of the ring. We hope that when we convey this, it is a fair and concise argument. We hope that our opponents are forthcoming and truthful in their arguments to our debate. We thank you for this opportunity, and we appreciate your time. Again, thank you to both the esteemed judges here, Christian, who I have not met, and Brandon Martin, who I will retract him eating a dick. I thank you all.
And I hate to thank you all for a quick second, but our third judge finally has shown up. Here he is.
Well, Big Daddy Trey, I also will extend that
Hello?
out to you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for being here to judge this critical discussion. I thank you for your time,
Hello?
and I stand back and relieve my time.
All right, Jordan, you have anything
How's
to follow
everyone
up
doing?
with?
Oh, we're doing fine. But as for everything else, this is just my way of redemption, in my view, because this is a way for me to get back, to finally, get that Kevin Nash GOAT meme, out of the way for once and for
Hello?
all. And plus, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I couldn't hear you
Okay.
guys for a minute.
Well,
But you can hear us now.
anyway,
Yeah.
the deal is, basically put, this is a chance of redemption. Now, the thing is, you may think it's like 2-0 between me and Charlie, when the fact of the matter is it's 2-1.
We're
Because
starting out fresh, Jordan. It's 0-0, it's a clean slate. We got this, man. We got this. It's gonna
I
be
know.
good.
But at the end of the day, all I know is, whether I win or lose, I know one thing. If we win, and I'm just saying a big if, we win, I know Charlie will be coming back to me hand and knee and begging me for another rematch. But then again, who knows? It'd be a best-of-5 series. It'll be better than the one in WCW with Chris Benoit and Booker T, I believe. At least I think there was.
Well said, Jordan. Well said.
Anyway, may the best team win, I guess.
Okay. And Hangman?
Yes. Well, thank you to the three judges here and the host, the Christian I've not met, Big Daddy Trey, who I have interacted with a few times, and of course one of the greatest hosts of one of the greatest podcasts of all time, Mr. Randy Martin. You are a saint. You are a great man. Anyway, so we are here to decide. Me and my great co-host will be Tom. Are here to discuss why Kevin Nash is one of the all-time greats. Now, J-Man had to have the gall to, get the assistance of Mr. Dan XP, which, some people need backup to help them in their fight. I've had backup in some of my wars over the past year, so I know how that is. But he could handle the loss to me on episode 30 of the Hangman Outcast. And as a wise man once said, I asked myself, do these two men have death sentences?
Did you just quote yourself as the wise man?
No, I was quoting Jerome. But
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
and you're not supposed to interrupt me. Uninterrupted thing. Anyway. But do these two men have death sentences? And speaking of death sentence, here's David 3000 in chat. Hey, everybody in chat. But anyway, and it looks like they do because they did not back out. They had multiple opportunities to back out this challenge. And Jordan is going to have to take another L. And for some reason, Dan XP single-handedly beats both me and Tom. The fact is that whether I lose or not, Jordan will want this a rematch more than I, because of the fact that we would be at a tie in that sense for 2-2. So Jordan, of all people, would want a rematch because I think I could live even like it took him the help of Dan XP to get a win when I beat him single-handedly twice. So I think him wanting the tiebreaker would haunt him more than will me, because I can live with defeat, except if his name is Jerome. I will get to that eventually.
Oh man, Charlie, you just go on and on.
I've said it before. He is really infatuated for that loss.
He really
It's okay,
wants to
Jordan.
go on.
Don't worry about it. Let
So,
Tom speak.
So we're not
More
facing.
interruption. The host, get these men in order. I was just about to finish my opening segment.
Oh, you were gonna finish.
But
Okay.
thank you all for tuning in here, and I hope you all have a great time and stay healthy for an even better stream when Paige does another Live and Uncovered Lounge. Cheap plug. Anyway, my co-host.
All right. So first off,
All
shout
right,
out to
yep,
the people
Tom
that
and Sam.
matter. I'll say the people that matter here. No offense to anybody here, but we all know that the people that matter the most are here in chat, which is I Pokes, David 3000, Jenna, Mr. Gozy, the beat maker, he always making beats on my stream, Jester Gaming, Big Daddy Trey, who was peeking in the chat, but he's also here right here on the stream judging for us. Mitch Hill, what's up, my bro? I see you all the time in my streams. Generation Kenny, Cable, who puts on fire. He's Cable Flame for a reason, because this guy has fire Twitch channel. Like, he's always putting out good stuff. Although his last stream is on YouTube, which I find interesting, but you have to ask him about that. We also got David 3000, who I probably already said, so shout out to you twice, man of the future. And River Zakai 86. Stop. Now let's get over to what's happening here. Man, we just lost Big Daddy Trey.
Oh man.
So secondly,
I'm fully prepared to take for Big Daddy Trey, but here he comes. I think he just had a small technical mishap. But
probably what I did.
With that said, judges, I'm going to, if you're not muted already, I'm going to give you guys a mute.
Paige, can I interject? Tom was giving an eloquent speech. I don't want him to lose time because of technical difficulties. I want to make it fair and clean. I don't want anybody to say that we're not fair here. Can Tom finish his opening statement, sir?
Okay. Yep.
All right.
I didn't start the opening speeches, by the way.
Shout out to the judges, Brandon Martin, Big Daddy Trey, Christian, Phenomenal One for hosting the stream, Hangman Charlie, by the way, Dan XP, DXP. Check out his Twitch. His Twitter has more information on that. And, of course, JMANzLegit. Those two are our opponents. We'll see what happens here tonight. I already have some stuff prepared, in my opinion. Let's just be clear before we go on. They're saying that Kevin Nash was a detriment to the wrestling business. And we're saying he wasn't. And that's the debate. Take it away, Phenomenal One.
All right. So we've had our opening statements already. We've had some pretty fiery words said from both sides. But now we're going to go into a little bit more deeper. We're going to go a little bit more deeper now. As we're going to go into our opening as we're going to now start going into our main arguments for your side. I'll give each of you I'll give 5 minutes to explain your stance and why you believe in that stance, and give some reasons why in that reasoning. You want to make the most use of this time as possible, as the judges will be watching. Right now, the judges are muted, but they will definitely be giving their thoughts at the end. And then after we go through these 5-minute speeches, then we'll also start going into the reason, and we'll start going deeper into the reasons why. So,
who would you like to go first, Phenomenal?
I think
coin.
We can flip a coin.
Wow, I cannot believe I influence a lot of things.
Don't influence these judges.
Hey, I'm not the one doing the butt kissing.
That's
fair. That is a fair statement, because it is coming in deep there, Charlie.
Okay, and I'll go Tom. Heads or tails?
Heads.
Okay, if it's heads, your team will go first. If not, Jordy Boy's team will go first. Tails.
All right, Jordan. The first 2.5 minutes are you.
Okay. When are we starting?
Well, actually, you get 5 minutes each.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. If I had any extra time, I was gonna leave it to Jordan. But go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah.
All right.
Jordan, 5 minutes. Starting off with you, and go.
Okay. The reason why I believe that, he's pretty much a detriment into wrestling is for obvious reasons. One, what he did in the past, like in backstage, like whether it was the WWF or WCW, was basically more about politics. How he got his way into more money and more fame. But granted, even though wrestling is based around money, but still at the end of the day, it's kind of a, very anticlimactic for someone like him, especially of how he held a lot of people down, including, especially in WCW when he jobbed out a few guys, including Bill Goldberg ending his streak. And then there was that, finger poke of doom, which was so stupid. And then all of their arguments say that, on him being the greatest of all time, I don't consider someone being the greatest of all time when they make this business into a joke. That's what pretty much Kevin Nash did in this business when he, did things like that, had creative control, and it became a detriment of putting, not just this business to change, but also ending WCW as we all know it including when they were on life support in 2000. So pretty much all I got to say is that if you're the greatest of all time, you should be recognized of how you are backstage and even including what you do in the ring as well. That's pretty much all I got to say, really.
Okay. So are you going to relieve your time, or do you want to keep going?
Now I'm gonna pass it to Dan.
Okay.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you. That was well put. But to add on to the points that Jordan made, first off, thank you all, and thank you for all being here. I would be remiss to not take the Tom Willis route and thank all of you in the chat. I can't look at the chat at the moment. I'm using my phone, but I want to thank you all for being here to hear these opening arguments. You see, wrestling is something that's brought us all together. We're all here because we're fans of wrestling. That's what this debate about is, really. You know, that's what this whole synopsis, this whole argument is because of our love of the sport of professional wrestling, a sport that's been very near and dear to my heart from the first moment my father put it on television to the first time I ever walked into the halls of the Sportatorium to see some of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Now, my argument is not that Kevin Nash did not contribute. That would be a bull-faced lie to say that Kevin Nash did not bring something to this great professional sport that we all love and is very near and dear to our hearts. My argument is that he was more of a detriment than an advantage. In saying that, we go back to WCW. We go back to a time of world championship wrestling. We go back to a character named Vinny Vegas, who could never get over. We go back to a character like Oz, who was a floundering concept that just didn't do anything for anyone. And what happened with this character? He was seen by one of Charlie's favorite wrestlers, if not his favorite wrestler, someone he tries to idolize, from San Antonio, Texas, the Shawn Michaels. He was brought in to be his heater. And in that role, he overshined Shawn. People loved him. The Diesel character was great. But the Diesel character led to something worse. I'm talking about the Clique. And if any of us sit here and really, really think about this, the Clique was not something that made wrestling better. It was a group of friends that took hold, a stranglehold. They got the boss under their grip, and they choked the life out of him, making them the overwhelming overlords of the wrestling business, making matches how they wanted, crying and complaining, losing smiles. And to say that Kevin Nash wasn't a part of that would be a bold-faced lie. It's been said in many documentaries how the Clique would vilify others. They would treat people like garbage. But again, we're not talking about the Clique. We're talking about Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash, who did win the world title, and it's been on record to be the lowest drawing world heavyweight champion of all time. He did have talent. And for a big man, he had many, many, many great matches. But he just didn't have that drawing ability. No different than when he was in WCW under those other characters. You see, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges, our host, Kevin Nash was not the great mainstream attraction that he wished he was. And so the time came when he was looking for greener pastures. And who doesn't want to do better themselves for themselves and for their family? So he took the trip over to WCW. But before he did that, there was the infamous, and I mean infamous, curtain call, which in many regards changed the face of professional wrestling as we know it. You see, in one night, kayfabe died. And I'm one of those people who believe that kayfabe being alive would have kept this business as profitable and as great as it once was. Because once you see behind the velvet rope, ladies and gentlemen, once you see behind the curtain, you could never unsee that. There was no mystery anymore. Bad guys cohorting with good guys at the dinner table with bad guys, and this changing the way we look at pro wrestling forever. When there was mystique, when there was mystery, when there was dirt sheets, when there was the original Dave Meltzer, we had that. But now we have so much information that is convoluted wrestling as a whole. There was a time when wrestlers were titans and champions. But again, I go back to this infamous night, and it took everything away. And who was at the head of all this? The Clique. And who was in that Clique? Kevin Nash. Now let's fast forward. Kevin Nash did go to WCW. He got a guaranteed contract. Nothing wrong with that. If it was not for the Clique and Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, guaranteed money wouldn't be a thing. Wrestlers would not be paid as well as they are now. But there's an underlining concept to that contract. Anybody that comes in behind them making more, they get bumped up. We've seen many documentaries where the Big Show, Paul White, has come out and said they were making money hand over fist. Others were treated like garbage at the whims of Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. Hulk Hogan was involved in this, and we all know that Hulk Hogan has had a very tainted past in the wrestling industry, but he also influenced them, showing them how to make that money. They used that influence to bury wrestlers that they didn't think were above them, wrestlers that had opportunity, but weren't given that upper echelon.
Okay,
Over
Dan,
time,
your 5 minutes.
oh, I apologize. I didn't. Do I get the rest of Jordan's, or do I just? It's just 5 minutes flat.
That was 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll accept that.
All right. And now, we'll start off with Hangman and his argument.
Oh, those are some good. Well, on Dan's side, really, some good arguments. A little elongated, but he had more context than Mr. J-Man. So I'm going to do what they did do and use the 5 minutes of force, and I'll go over. Anyway, Kevin Nash. Yes, he was a part of Curry Call. Yes, he did. He was a part of some bad gimmicks in the very early years of World Championship Wrestling. Vinny Vegas, however, if it was for Vinny Vegas, he may not have gotten noticed by Shawn Michaels because the oozing of charisma. Now, a lot of people always talk about the stuff from the 90s, the clicks, the fucking WCWs, the finger poke of doom, the Bill Goldberg streak. Well, let's not forget what some things Kevin Nash did later on in his career that a lot of people don't talk about. And I'm about to talk about his days in Total Nonstop Action. For those of you who said he was a just all about himself, in the early days of his run in TNA, it seemed like that. Then came a thing, Paparazzi Productions with Alex Shelley, and also the tournament to find the newest star, which created new stars in that group. You had guys like Low Key, you had guys like Jay Lethal, Chris Sabin, as mentioned before, Alex Shelley. And in that group that Kevin Nash was running during that period, which was actually some of the funniest moments and some stuff that wouldn't even work today because of some of the stuff they said. Two main characters came out of that. Motor City Machine Guns were born out of that little experiment Nash did. And let's not forget Black Machismo Jay Lethal, which of course shot Jay Lethal to the top. He's one of the most decorated stars in professional wrestling right now. Who knows if his personality didn't come out in those segments with Kevin Nash, would he have been as successful years later? Would Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley still be going today as the Motor City Machine Guns? Would Chris Sabin be a former TNA World Champion if not for the stuff he did with Kevin Nash? And some of the stuff he did in TNA, some of the matches he had. He had some matches with AJ Styles. He had a fun brawl with Mr. Mick Foley. Nash did some good during that period in his time in TNA that a lot of people don't talk about because they just talk about his WWF and WCW runs. And as my final closing argument, yes, Nash was one of the worst drawing WWE champion. However, Drew McIntyre probably hasn't beat with the views, but let me say this. McIntyre and Nash have one thing in common. Yes, they had some horrible opponents to go with, especially Nash. But was it really Nash's fault? Yes, he's WWE champion, but a lot of people aren't blaming Drew McIntyre for the same issue. A lot of people aren't blaming him, but yet he should be the reason why Raw ratings are going down the drain. But everybody blames Kevin Nash. It doesn't reflect on the champion. It reflects on the company as a whole of Creighton, because 95 was one of the worst years in professional wrestling as a whole. Let's not forget that. It's not all Nash's fault. It's not all Mabel. It's not all. It's a combination of everything. So with that, I will end my opening argument. That's how you make a rebuttal. Good day, gentlemen.
Okay. And Tom?
All right, so Charlie handled the future of Nash, but I'm going to go back. Let's go back to the WCW years because WCW gets a bad rep with Kevin Nash. And I'm glad Charlie brought up the 95 thing because the wrestling business was tanking in 95. We all knew that. It wasn't doing very well. It wasn't until 96 where the corner started to turn. And let me propose a question to you. If Hulk Hogan didn't have Nash and Hall by his side in 96 to do the NWO, would it have worked? Of course Hogan needed to turn heel. We all knew that. But who could have stood by him with the impact of coming over from another company and doing that? Because it all would have been expected. But the thing and the reason why it worked is because this was unexpected. Nobody expected somebody from another company to come in and ravel up a gang like a NWO and do a hostile takeover. Nash was a huge part of that. And people say that, oh, Nash's Diesel didn't draw any views, Okay, if that didn't draw any views, then how come when he went into the WCW, all of a sudden the ratings peaked when he went heel and went Hogan? There was peaked interest. It wasn't just Hogan, because Hogan, trust me, Hogan was not pulling in ratings for that company before he turned heel. It was actually quite the opposite. People were booing him. They were tired of Hogan. Nash and them all got together. Originally, it was supposed to be Sting. Boom, it was Hogan. It went on fire. But before we knew it was Hogan, that gimmick was already over. And that's Hall and that's Nash that put that over. Hulk Hogan was just icing on the top of the cake. Now let's go forward. Throughout that time there, he made mistakes. WWF made mistakes. Everybody was making mistakes. It was just, even ECW was making mistakes. Nobody knew where to go with what this television was doing, because television was being unique at the time. At the time, everything, weird reality shows, reality became a thing, so they tried to sneak it into wrestling. So when they did the backstage stuff and they played it out on air, it's only because the WWF was doing it too. And sometimes the punches don't roll like you think they're gonna, and stuff like the finger poke of doom happens. And that's unfortunate. But all kinds of stuff happens like that all the time. When they did the cross in ECW and Raven and that whole incident where they almost had Kurt Angle and all of a sudden they did a stunt. It happens in the business. But as fans at the time, we don't see the behind the scenes stuff. And we're talking about wrestling as wrestling fans. And we don't worry about that. We are viewing a product and we said it was good because the ratings were high. The ratings tanked all of a sudden after the finger poke of doom, but we all know it wasn't just Nash's doing. And to put the burden on Nash is disingenuous to him, because he did so good 96, 97, 98, and then all of a sudden everything went bad. It wasn't just him. We all know TNT wasn't giving them what they wanted. They wanted to go a different direction. Ted Turner was separating himself. And we all knew the behind the scenes. There was a merger going on with AOL. Everybody was a rocky start. The only people that had guaranteed contracts, which I'll get to that in 1 second if I have time. And the burden on, I'll get to that now. The burden on Kevin Nash when it comes to guaranteed contracts, he made the business what it is today. And in my opinion, it's what's good for the business. These guys that are good enough to get the guaranteed contract, get it. And Hall were responsible for that. And that, I don't know why people look at that as a negative, but that's what you do it for. You want to get a guaranteed contract in professional sports. It doesn't matter what it is. That's why you do it. You don't do it to be cut and laid off and sit at home. You do it because you want it, because you got to get that contract. But again, as fans, we don't look at that stuff. We look at what we like, and everybody was saying, we like this. We like what's going on. And it was doing great. And as Hangman said, later on in his career, he did the TNA stuff and he built up stars. He didn't even mention the Main Event Mafia, which was another great storyline that Nash was a part of. So I'll close with that, because that hate in the 90s is just, I think it's a little overblown. Ruining the business is a little overhyped. That's a little crazy. We all know there's more gears than just the giant Nash gear. And to put it all on him is kind of ridiculous. And I'll close with that.
Okay. Very interesting statements all across the board for the um very opening statements all across the board for the opening round. Right now, I'm gonna unmute the judges, thoughts, get their thoughts in the first round. So, Brandon, you're the first judge that I have brought on to this esteemed debate, and what are your thoughts on these opening arguments?
I mean, to be honest, though, Paige, both both of these guys did great. I'll say that. Along with Dan, mostly Dan, I'll say that. Still give some credit to Jordan on that one. Charlie and Tom on their opening arguments, great. I just made a couple notes and all that, with the TNA run, of course, the Paparazzi Productions, the X Division, some good matches in TNA, and all that other stuff. And then going back to Dan with, most, and with, a lot with Overshine Shawn Michaels and all that other stuff, the creative control, 2000. I know Jordan talked about the past and backstage in WWF and WCW with the politics and all that. I mean, and then of course the lowest draw world heavyweight title in the WCW days. So overall, pretty good start from both of these guys. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very strong start. But Trey, what do you think?
Pretty like what Brandon just said. Both guys made great points. Both guys were passionate what they were saying. They really believe what they're saying, and I commend both of you, all of you guys for really sticking to your guns and not backing down. That has to be respected, because these days it's hard to find people who really stick with their opinions and don't let no one change them. That has to be admired.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just interject? And it's not to say anything negative.
Okay,
Go ahead.
And Jordan, you may not agree with this. I did not manage my time well, but I appreciate the judges coming in and saying what they have to say. But I'm not gonna. I can't. I'm a man of honesty. I'm a man of truth. And I'll be honest. Like Tom conveyed beautifully. He was very well managed of his time. He made his points, and I don't think that he should be in any way, shape, or form penalized for that. I want to make it clear. I felt like I'm passionate about my points, and I had other points to make. But if we're going to be fair and I'm going to be honest, I feel like Tom made the better points because he managed his time better. I want the judges to take that in consideration as they're making their deliberations. That's all I want to say.
all right. I think okay. All right. Christian, what are your thoughts here in this first round?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Phenomenal One, for having me on here to have, to be one of the judges here. I thought this first round was actually pretty interesting with both sides openings right here, and like Brandon here said, I was taking notes as well on the pros and cons of this whole debate. Both sides have made some strong segments right there, and I'm gonna say what Dan just said right there, that Tom did very well on managing his time and making some reasonable points on the pros on this, and I'm just gonna say that both sides have been doing pretty good so far, in my opinion.
Okay. So right now we have the judges seal approval on things, which is always a very good sign. And now I think it's a good time to start a little bit of questioning, because I'm pretty sure that you probably have some very strong questions on both sides of the equation that you can use to very much solidify your arguments. So because J-Man and Dan went first the last round, I'll let Hangman and Tom go first, and they can ask the question to either member, but you each get 3 questions each. a max.
What if I have a question that lead like because can I get a I don't know, this is weird. Can I get a lead-in question? Because there's a kind of a question that's going to lead into multiple questions, and I'm not going to ask this question if this first one isn't answered.
Okay.
That makes sense. Basically, Dan, were you a WCW fan or a WWF fan?
I was both, actually. Like, I was one of those tweeners in between. Like, I would watch WWE and WCW at the same time. I was, even as a kid, I rooted for both because I felt like two companies meant better business. And it was good to have options. Like, I was a Stone Cold fan. I was an Undertaker fan. But on this flip side, I was a Raven fan and characters like that. And just to throw it out there, I was a Kevin Nash fan. And it was, as I interjected in my opening statement, it wasn't until I started understanding beyond the curtain and realizing what these people's actions implicated that I started turning towards the other side.
I can understand that. So I guess my real question here is, because I'm glad you answered that. My real question is, and really it's a simple answer. Do you believe that Nash going over to WCW in '96 was good, was the good for the business, and it's what the spark that it needed, or do you think that it wasn't?
I would be foolish to say that it wasn't a good thing, but again, from my understanding, this debate is here to prove whether Nash is the GOAT, and that is where.
I don't know how this became I don't know where this came from. This was always the debate was always that is he a detriment to wrestling or is he a good thing to wrestling? That was always been the debate. I don't know. The GOAT was a joke around like the chat, like he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
That always been the debate was is he a detriment to wrestling?
Well, to put it in perspective, I will say this. I think it was an excellent choice for them to bring him over. I think that he was, if we're talking, I think we've heard this analogy before. He was the blasting cap. He was a dynamite, and Hall was the dynamite. Hogan was that blasting cap.
Yeah.
Because if Hogan wasn't involved in that, it wouldn't have worked. You could have Nash, you could have Hall, and it wouldn't have worked. It would have just been two guys that came over that caused chaos. But I guess I can't really ask a question back because these are your questions, but I do think it was a good thing he came over. I just don't think that he was the blasting cap. And without that, there would have been no explosion.
I can respect that. So my opening statement was that Hogan was needed to make it work, but Hogan needed them just as much because there's nobody on that WCW roster that would have been as believable as the WWF's unexpected guy. So that being said, I am interested to hear. So Hangman said earlier, I guess I'll ask his question too. He said earlier in his opening statement that he helped build talent in TNA. What is your perspective on that? And do you agree or disagree? And also, let me add this as a caveat. You said that he hurt talent, but Charlie's saying that he built some talent. What is your perspective?
I'm glad you asked that because that was what I wanted to get into in my ultimate opening argument. I think that enough damage was done that yes, he did build some talent. He put them on in a more of a mainstream view, but let's be honest, with the Jay Lethals, with the Alex Shelleys, with the City Machine Guns, with all of these guys that he brought up, that Charlie brought up, who, other than us fans of Ring of Honor and TNA and other things like that, know who they are. He had an opportunity to actually when he was in the mainstream to bring up talent. And it's in my opinion, a little bit of too little too late to say that he did anything of substance as far as these wrestlers went. I think that he did a good job with Alex Shelley. The Paparazzi Productions was an excellent gimmick. Alex Shelley had talent. He just didn't have that charisma until the time he spent with Nash. That anybody who tries to deny that is a bull-faced liar. Anybody that tries to deny that he didn't build in TNA, that's good and fine. But when he had his productive years, he didn't care about anybody else. And I'm not knocking him for that. I'm not. Please understand, it's a business. And at the end of the day, with business, you take care of you first, you take care of your family first, and whatever's left over, you do for them. But he had such clout back then that so many people could have gotten over. So many people could have done better. Why waste all that time just to do it in TNA with very little eyes on that in the grand scheme of things? That's my issue as far as building talent there.
Well, my last question is, and it'll build off of that, basically that question. So you said too little, too late, but the idea of this is that at the end of the day, he said he's a detriment to the wrestling business. So you got to take the good with the bad as a whole. Now, as you said, you even said this. You said that he, like everybody else, was thinking about themselves first. Now, if we want to go 95, 96, 97, we definitely know that's true for the majority of the talent, the mass majority of them. Very few people were thinking about anybody else because it was cutthroat back then, because, again, contracts weren't guaranteed for a lot of people. It's a little different now. The playing field is different now. It's not the same. Now, obviously, we can't compare it because it's like apples and oranges at this point. My question to you is, if you were to interject yourself in the current climate and everybody had the contracts that they wanted, do you think that Nash would have succeeded in whether it was TNA in the 90s? Basically what I'm trying to ask, I'm sorry if I'm jumbling this, I'm trying to get it right so it's understandable. Do you think that Nash was the type of talent where he could have gotten over no matter what decade he was a part of? Was he that? Because as you said, he had the worst ratings ever, but yet for some reason, not you, I think it was Charlie who brought that up, actually, ironically, and my partner bringing up a bad stat. He said that he had the worst ratings in 95, but yet he's also responsible for some of the greatest rated pay-per-views and shows of WCW in like 97. So do you think that he's the type of guy that would have been able to take that same personality and bring it into the aggression at his, he got older and his quads got weak. But if he was Kevin Nash, the Nash guy that we knew in the 90s, would it worked in the 2000s? I'm not going to go in the 2010s because, again, it's a different playing field at this point. But in the 2000s, what is your opinion on that?
Well, okay, that's a really good question. I think I'll start with the statement, and whether you agree, let me know if you agree. Everyone likes an asshole, right? I think we can all, popularity-wise, everyone likes an asshole.
Correct.
And he personified that with his character. Like, there was many times he would come to the ring when he had the title, and you would hear him on camera saying, "I'm the shit." Like, he knew who his character was. I will never deny him. He knew what his character was. He had 5 moves, including a hair flip, if I'm going to quote Jim Cornette. And that's fine. But yeah, I think Charlie kind of talked about him coming back and getting a pop later in his career. But does anybody really remember he did come back and have a feud with Triple H for a little while there, and it did nothing. It was not, even he probably wasn't in the best physical health.
What year was that, Dan?
I want to say, was it 2010, 2011?
Okay.
I was gonna say like 2003, but then again, that's 2011. If you're gonna go that far,
maybe I misunderstood the question. The question is if he was in the shape of the 90s and had that same feud with Triple H in 2011, because basically saying, "Oh my God," but we all knew he had medical issues at that point. He had a staph infection that he had gotten over in TNA. It's hard. It's very disingenuous to say, "Oh, he wasn't good because of how he ended it." Because if we're going to use what he did in the beginning as a negative thing on his career, even though, again, I put points out there that saying that it wasn't as negative as people would lead you to believe, then it's only fair that we do the same later on in the future. Like this. So I'm just saying, basically my point I'm trying to drive at is Nash the type of guy that would have worked if he was in the best shape? Because I'm trying to say as a talent. Would the Triple H feud had worked had he not been
in bad health?
Yes.
Okay. Personally, and this is again based on opinion, and I'm trying to convey my opinion of the man. I don't think so, and here's why, and here's my reasons for it. like I said, Jim Cornette once is famous for quoting that Nash had 5 moves. He had a kick, he had a clothesline, he had an elbow in the corner, and he had a hair flip. And I know that's a very degrading thing for someone to say, but if you look back at Nash's matches from back then, that was it. He wasn't so. You're not going to get a 5-star classic with someone like Kevin Nash. And I know some people don't like Chris Benoit, and that's fine, but I'm going to use Chris Benoit or Bret Hart in this analogy. You weren't going to get that kind of match. And in that time period that you're talking about, people were, and again, as a viewer, I was more concerned with great storytelling and technical wrestling. I don't think he was great on the mic. I think he offered a different outlook. Again, people like assholes, but I don't think that he was able to, even in the best of his career, was able to produce that 5-star match that would have gotten over in that time period with someone like Triple H, who changed his attack in the ring, who became more, pun intended, cerebral. I don't think it would have matched up. And I mean, the matches would have suffered, and he would have, in my opinion, dragged it down.
Interesting. You said that. You're saying that in the 90s, the people, the personalities, how they present themselves, with Shawn Michaels and the Bret Harts, how well they were, because the audience would appreciate that. But I will ask you this then. This ain't really. I'm just wanted to bring this up. This will be my final one page. If you're saying that, why is it that Kevin Nash, the guy who had 3 moves, a hair flip, which is like half a move, it's more cosmetic. Why is it that he outshined a technical wrestler like HBK to the point where he got pushed ahead of HBK to go on and main event of WrestleMania?
Are you talking about in the 90s?
Yes.
I think the reason that he was able to do that because he was a big guy, and in the 90s it was the land of the giants, and there's been, again, many discussions about this, opinions. Again, everyone has one, like everyone has an asshole. I think because he was such a big guy, because he was a good-looking guy, let's not deny Kevin Nash is an attractive guy, and women loved him. The reason why he outshined is because of again, cosmetic features, in my opinion. It wasn't until later on, when again the steroid scandal happened, that Vince was forced to push these smaller talents, and they were able to showcase and show that wrestling could be a technical-based sport with locks and holds and maneuvers and high flying, and it didn't have to be based off the land of giants. I think he thrived in that era because he was a 7-foot monster who had a body language of charisma. I don't think he was ever legitimately good on the mic, but I think that's why he was able to get over. And eventually, Shawn Michaels got over on him. If we're talking about WrestleMania, you're right. He did win over and get to WrestleMania before Shawn. But when they had their match at WrestleMania, Shawn's push legitimately started there because Shawn, as the smaller, more athletic, more technical wrestler, outshined the champion, even in defeat.
I will give you that, Dan. But what you're describing there doesn't sound like a detriment to wrestling. Sounds like a really good feud and a great wrestling career.
Can I rebuttal to that or no?
I'll give you a rebuttal. Yeah.
Okay. So, and you're right. I think that the feud itself was good, and again, and maybe I'm having to flip around on the fly here, and it's hard because I really thought this was about. I was following the meme here. I thought that what this was all about. And again, I'll never knock Nash's contributions. My issue with him being a detriment is the whole political side of things. And again, going back to what Charlie said, later on, he did do his best to put over in his own way, even though when he came in on the other side, he started out as the kings of wrestling with one of the greatest burial artists in the business, Jeff Jarrett. Again, it's trying to weigh and balance whether he did enough good or enough bad. And in my opinion, he did more bad than good.
All right, that's all I got. Phenomenal one. I don't know if Charlie has anything. Charlie's
all right. Charlie. Since Tom asked to Dan, Charlie, you're gonna ask to Jordan.
I think he's on a smoke break.
No, I wasn't.
Right here.
I was. I'm actually while I'm doing this, since I'm so great, I am working on I'm working on the characters for HCPW. Got pages done and all that other stuff. But anyway, now that we're back down to brass tacks here, J-Man. So, you of course have said lots of things about Kevin Nash as being a detriment to professional wrestling, more of a detriment. Same with Dan.
Correct.
So I have a few, not as many as Tom's, but I do have a few that I want to address here.
Breathe, Jordan. It's gonna be okay.
Yes, breathe like you're giving birth.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, at least
don't let him down. Jordan.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I'm just saying, like, at least my lungs aren't bad.
Anyway, first question, do you agree with Dan that Mr. Nash was never a good promo or a good talker?
I agree with that because, basically put, most of his promos weren't really that big of a deal like, most others, like with Stone Cold Steve Austin with the 316 promo in 96, or the CM Punk pipe bomb in 2011, or even even today's, generation when it comes down to Cody Rhodes' promo in AEW when he was, feuding with Jericho.
Now,
So I could say no, he was not a good talker.
Now, do you not agree that Kevin Nash at the end of 95 would be, in my and other opinions, the first cool heel in wrestling, or he would be the person and also a tweener. Way before Austin, he did things that later on would be more popularized with Austin and so on and so forth, with the tweener role and all that. So do you remember the heel turn from the end of 95, and do you think that is a kind of the genesis to what Stone Cold would become? Because it wouldn't be, not even though it's 7 months later, we would get Austin 316.
Well, the difference between Stone Cold and Diesel, like in regards to being like the tweener or whatever, is this. You see with Nash, he was like, the kind of guy, like, you never know if he's a face or a heel. Like, they made him somewhat of a brief face in 95, during his world title run. But when he turned heel, it wasn't that much of a big deal than everyone else thought, because still at the same time, now, as far as Stone Cold's, run, when he was a heel but yet being cheered, it was a whole completely different story, because it's not really much of an influence. It's really much of how the fans react to you, because basically whatever the fans, like whether they cheer you or boo you, that's what really is the main thing of whether or not you're a good guy or a bad guy. And quite honestly, not a lot of fans gave a crap about Nash than they did with Steve Austin.
Now, do you also, to go back to your the previous question I asked you about the promos? So you're acknowledging, as you said, that Nash wasn't a good talker. So none of his Wolfpack from WCW promos, where he was one of the more popular wrestlers in that company during that period. The Wolfpack was one of the more profitable. The Wolfpack merch was one of the more profitable things in WCW. It was getting original NWO territory of numbers. And he also made some great promos during that period. He built pretty much the Goldberg feud at Starrcade, building it up with the whole whether you like it or not, Bill Goldberg, I'm next. Pretty much act like he ain't scared. Because he had to, in storyline, he was the one man that had to show no fear towards Bill Goldberg, because everybody showed fear to Bill Goldberg. So you're also acknowledging that some of his Wolfpack stuff in 98 was not good or great either. Is that correct?
It's not a matter of if it was great or not. It's a matter of how he, came about with it. It's like whenever you hold the mic, you have the ability of creating, history. Now with Nash, he had opportunities to do that, to improve, how he did it with the WWF, and he did the same in WCW. I won't take that away from him. But the difference is the fact that when it came down to him and Goldberg, you knew what was like. A few people backstage knew what was going to happen, but they didn't know how it was going to be played out. And as for him, being good on the mic, whether it was in WCW or not, quite honestly, you're talking about a faction that should have been known as the Wolf Pack instead of NWO, Wolf Pack or Red and Black or whatever. So to be quite blunt here, it really wasn't that big of a major factor in my opinion.
My two last statements / questions are going to be number one, you also realize that Goldberg, even to this day, has never been known as a great talker. So Nash building up the match between him and Goldberg at Starrcade, which did good for good or bad reasons, was practically driven but not only by Goldberg's streak, but it had to be carried by Nash's promo work. Because besides great in-ring action, there needs to be great storytelling, and that needs to be told via the in-ring and mic skills and promos to hype up the show. So that main event was talked about even before the event took place, and you could say that it was done by Kevin Nash because once again Nash was never or not Nash, but Goldberg was not a promo guy. Now the final question, you were talking about the NWO. It should have been called NWO.
I said they shouldn't have been known as the Wolf Pack, NWO Wolf Pack. They should have been known as Wolf Pack.
Now I will address this one thing as my final argument.
Go ahead.
Final statement. The reason why the NWO Wolfpack and the NWO Black and White were a thing and why there were so many people, just to point this error out, was that Thunder and WCW Nitro, when Thunder came in, which this year marks the anniversary, this year or month marks the anniversary of Thunder premiering on TBS. Thunder was originally supposed to be where WCW would be taking place, like Nitro and all that. And Nitro, or where all the WCW non-NWO stars, and then Nitro would be where the NWO would be. When they did that test project in late December with NWO Monday Nitro. So they built all those guys up, and there was going to be a few within that show. So I just wanted to point that out there real quick, because it would have been NWO Wolfpack due to what the plans were going to be for Thunder and Nitro. But those are my questions I have. I pass the floor to the judge, P1.
Your mic's still muted, but can I make one rebuttal since Dan got his?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get a rebuttal. Yeah.
Thank you. Thing is, you got a good point. I mean, that's what the original plans were with WCW Nitro to become NWO Nitro. But the problem is that, a few things happened, like whether it was, I think it was either the TV problems, the deals or whatnot. And truth be told, if they were going to have NWO Nitro, and if they were going to split the NWO apart on the show, and if they're going to have Wolfpack versus Hollywood, then they need to do it right if they were going to go that route. But unfortunately, it never came to pass. So we all got a big fustercluck when it came down to 1998 with that, with that debacle. Anyway, you go ahead, Paige.
Okay. So now, now that Tom and Hangman have given their questions, and J-Man and Dan have given the answers, we're going to reverse. So now J-Man and Dan, you guys will do the questions, and Tom and Hangman will be doing the answers.
Jordan, you mind if I ask Hangman a question?
Yeah, but first, Tom, your mic was muted. You mean...
Gonna flip who we're talking to, like Dan, Hangman, me, J-Man this time?
Well, you know what, Dan, you get to decide who do you want to ask the questions to, and whoever you ask to, I'll ask to the other.
I just mean in the interest of fairness. That way, we're not all just
that's what I figured would be cute, because I know everybody's trying to get me and Tom to go.
It's just I've been talking to Dan the whole time, and I feel like it's a me and Dan debate and the Hangman Charlie and J-Man debate. So that
And I do have questions for Hangman, so I'm fine with that. If you're the judges and Paige, y'all good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. I'll be right
Charlie,
back. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I won't be
Charlie,
long.
you made the statement about Nash doing such good work in his later in his career as TNA work, and I'm not questioning a lot of that. I'm in agreement with some of it. But my question to you is, we all remember the Summer of Punk, yes? We all, as wrestling fans, the Summer of Punk. I would like to know from you, Charlie, in what way did Kevin Nash elevate CM Punk when he entered, and this is far after TNA, mind you, when he entered the WWE, powerbombed him, and began a feud with him that went absolutely nowhere, involving him, Triple H, and the chicanery that went on there. Was that, in your opinion, is that a way to elevate the highest growing star at the time after the pipe bomb? Was he doing any favors to CM Punk?
Well, unfortunately, we cannot fully answer that because we don't know what would have happened if they actually had a match. Because they were supposed to have a match at Night of Champions after Kevin Nash cost him the belt, which then led that whole storyline of Nash texting himself and yada, yada, yada. But they were supposed to have a match at Night of Champions, which then turned to Triple H and CM Punk. So unfortunately, after that, it led to just Nash coming in and fucking up Punk and Triple H, and then just mainly fucking up Triple H and leading to their god-awful sledgehammer on the pole match. However, we cannot fully answer that because there was no full resolution to what was going to happen. Now, is that Nash's fault? Is that Punk's fault? Is that Triple H's fault?
Let me interject. I'm like Tom did with me. I'm trying to make sure I convey the question properly. What I'm saying is, with what the product we were given, and Nash being a part of that product, injuries, whatever aside, because he did end up having a match with Triple H later on. Talking about Triple H, what I'm asking is, with what Nash contributed to, whether it be the promo, anything else, did that help to elevate CM Punk at all?
With the promo work, it was somebody else for him to work with. It was somebody for him to work with. But honestly, it wasn't. But again, I will say that we could be talking different if things happen. Right now, my answer would be no, because it didn't benefit anybody. It didn't benefit Nash. It didn't benefit really. If we're going to say who benefited of all of it, sadly, the only person that benefited was Kevin Nash and Triple H. But that's under circumstances we were dealt with. If it was but that would be my answer, because the only person who came out of the entire thing after December, looking 100% strong, was Triple H, which, Triple H looking strong in 2011 really wasn't not nothing to write home about.
Okay, and that, again, we're asking questions here, and we can accept that answer. Secondly, you brought up the Wolf Pack and how the Wolf Pack was this and how Nash was, but Nash wasn't the entirety of the Wolf Pack. And as far as the Wolf Pack goes, my question to you, Charlie, is: do you think that it was only Kevin Nash? Are you going to deny the contributions of someone like K-Dog, Conan, who was on fire in the Wolf Pack?
Yes, Conan was. It wasn't solely Nash.
Let me finish. Let me finish the question. You made it clear that Nash was you, and correct me if I'm wrong. The delivery I was given by you seemed as if you were trying to insinuate that Kevin Nash was the case in point, ipso facto, biggest part of the Wolf Pack. Are you denying that there were other members of that Wolf Pack that caused the explosion of popularity?
I am not going to deny the explosion. There was Conan. There were other people that I did not feel like were really necessary in the group. I never, as a Sting diehard, I never understood, even as a little kid, it never made sense why he was in there. He just didn't fit. him joining a faction. There were other, like, really, the only person I could think of besides Nash that benefited from the Wolfpack would be Conan, because the other people did, like, there were people in there that were friends with Nash that had connections and that had some good matches during that period, but Nash was the main driving point of that group. Conan was kind of that one unsung hero in the group that we still talk about to this day. But I don't rarely talk about a lot of the other group because I don't remember a lot of great moments with the other group besides Nash or Conan, like you said.
So my caveat to that is, of course, once again, would you say that Nash used a group to get himself over above others?
That's actually a good question. That's I don't know how that one I'm about to think about. That one I'm about to think about. The fact, my answer.
Sorry.
Charlie, you got caught in his trap because your point wasn't. Can I speak for Charlie because he's a little slow.
Is he allowed to answer for Charlie? I don't think that's fair.
I'm not, again, Tom, respect you, but there was points when I wanted to speak to Jaden.
We got to.
All right, Charlie.
Let's hear Charlie's thoughts on this.
Well, we did change the rules of who we were asking questions halfway in. So, anyway, David, you shut up. Anyway. So the question of did he use it? You could say the same thing about Hogan. You could say the same thing about Nash, and it's the Triple H thing. Don't we all have Isn't the idea to get over the most important thing? Now, he had his own group and he ran with it. I will say this though. Nash had a more successful group as part of the NWO Wolfpack than Hogan did with the NWO Hollywood.
But Charlie, what I'm asking is, again, and I'm not trying to accuse you of deflection here. I'm trying to give you an opportunity to answer the question. Did Kevin Nash use a group to get himself over?
Let's see. The point was, let's see. Now, to rebuttal your question with another question, when you're asking about the Nash stuff, about the Wolfpack, I was talking about holding promos leading up to Bill Goldberg. So
Charlie, again,
the question, or
Charlie, that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to accuse you of deflection, but the question was, did Kevin Nash use a group to get himself over?
The answer is no.
And what is your defense on that? What is your explanation on that bias? Because now you've changed your stance. Because at first you said yes.
Quit laughing at me. No kidding. He was already over. He was already over. He didn't need a group to elevate himself already.
So are you changing your stance now and saying that he was already over from where before you said he did?
I was confused by the question, but yes, I am.
I have to, I can't argue with his point. That's fine. He can have whatever stance he wants. I just want it for the record. At the beginning, he did say Kevin Nash used a group to get himself over. I think we can be clear on that.
Yeah, we'll make sure the judges are clear on that.
Write that down.
Finally, I guess my last question for you, Charlie, is going to be, in all of this, and as being a wrestling fan, and again, I'm not harping on you, Charlie. I'm just asking legitimate questions. We are having civil debate. I'm enjoying this. As far as Kevin Nash goes, even now, in Twitter, on any social media platform, he's been known to bury talent from now. But would you agree or disagree that the talent he's burying now are talent that are only acting in a way, whether it be contracts or disputes or arguing with companies, he kind of created that monster with the things that he and his friends propagated in his time at the top. And I find it kind of hypocritical on his side to sit there and criticize these people. Do you agree that it's hypocritical for him to judge people for doing the same things he once did during his time and saying that they're destroying the business by doing the same things he did?
Talents by like who? Explain the question deeper.
What I mean is, like, he has criticized talents online and saying, well, they've done this and they're doing this when they're only doing the same thing he did. They're trying to better their position in a company when he's telling them they should just shut up and accept what they're given, when he himself did not do that and he struck out to do better for himself. Do you think it's hypocritical that he's now criticizing others for doing what he did?
It also depends on how he feels now compared to back then. Like back then, if he said that, he could be considering it like being hypocritical in that regard. But if he has seen the error of his ways or whatnot, then maybe he sees it differently. So it's like Shawn Michaels criticized someone for drinking or doing drugs, but he's had a history of drugs beforehand, so it would be kind of hypocritical. But people would call that hypocritical in a way.
Again, I'm going to just throw my hand up here. We're not talking about Shawn Michaels. And as far as Shawn Michaels goes, Shawn Michaels hasn't gone on any record to criticize anybody for drinking or doing the things he's done, because he's openly admitted he was a problem back then. He did this. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, anyone who wants to correct me if I'm wrong, to date, I don't believe that Nash has ever come out and said, hey, I was wrong for this, I was wrong for that. It's only been, I made the business better because of the things I did. Yet he still criticizes those.
The point is,
he called on me, Charlie. I need to save you. He called on me, so all's fair, right, Paige?
That's fair.
Okay. So I will take over, Charlie, because you're burying yourself. Dan, I'm not answering that question because we all know here that the point is his impact on the wrestling at the time that he wrestled. What he says is no different than what you say, in my opinion, because these wrestlers nowadays, yes, they may take it to heart, this, that, and the other thing, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really, like Nash can make a podcast. Everybody has a podcast, but these wrestlers show what they have in the ring. And to bring up something that he may say at 61 years old is weird. I mean, like, it's just weird because the point is, from his wrestling career, and his career, as far as I'm concerned, is over. And whatever impact he would make in the wrestling business is history. So what he says now is just a 61-year-old man.
That's a fair point. But would you not agree that a man's legacy is not defined by the time that he was, by certain times of his life? It is defined by his entirety, not just fragments of time.
So do you agree, Dan? I guess I'll flip the question on you. Okay. If he died tomorrow, will we remember the people that he's burying right now on the internet? Or will we remember his wrestling career?
I'll use the late Brody Lee. As they talk about him and his passing, they're talking about the entirety of his career, even the ending. They're talking about everything he's done.
How old is he?
He's 40, in his 40s. Okay. 40, I believe.
Kevin Nash is 61. Let me ask you a question. Who, back in, what do you think of somebody here that passed away recently in their 60s that we could talk about? Bobby Heenan. What did Bobby Heenan say about the talent in wrestling in his 60s, 70s, probably?
It was not very, very positive. I'll be honest with that. Yes.
Well, what did he say? Do you remember anything specifically?
Not off the top of my head. You're going to have to.
Okay. So do you think that in 10 years, if Kevin Nash passes, off the top of your head, what are you going to remember?
Fair point. And I won't deny you that, yes, we're going to remember his career. And what I've tried to establish here in these conversations, that even in his career, he had the same faults.
Yes, but I'm trying to establish that this doesn't impact him. And going forward, this is just a 61-year-old man being a 61-year-old man.
Fair enough. I yield my time to Jordan, and he may ask his questions.
Yep, Jordan, your questions go.
Something real quick. Just for the record.
All right.
The esteemed member, the judges, and the hosts, and thank you for giving me this time. I do want to admit right here that Mr. XP is quite the competitor. Perhaps one day me and him will have a one-on-one debate.
You are gonna lose, bro. You fall into his traps. You're like he's the coyote. You're the road runner. I mean, he's the road runner. You're the coyote.
It's quite the. I asked Tom.
Okay, back to your point.
Beep beep.
I said I want to make this point. I want to make this point clear that as with Mr. XP, he's a formidable opponent. And David, I said the one person that gets choked is you when you lost the Jerome. At least I looked at anyway.
This doesn't
What
involve
does
David.
it involve Jerome? It doesn't involve David. We're having a conversation.
Hey, what does the Happy Gilmore debate got to do with this?
Can the judges please, and Paige, can we strike these comments from the record? They have nothing to do with the current topic going on.
Judges keep that in mind. But Hangman, if your point is not going to be relevant to the topic at hand, we're just going to move on to Mr. Legit.
No more distractions from the chat. I will say from my end.
Anyway,
he's a formidable opponent, but we all know who will be if this victory goes to Mr. Legit. We all know who he will be kissing his anus for because JMANzLegit cannot beat me 1-on-1, and I may have been off mark too with Mr. XP, but at least I'm
going to object here. This is not a pissing contest between Jordan Little and Charlie. This is a civil debate that Charlie is trying to turn into a pissing contest.
And for the record, Dan, he offered his services. I didn't go begging to him.
This is a true statement.
But anyway,
now I'm offering you your time to go. So Jordan, go.
Jordan,
I got to turn on the porch line on because I got a delivery of food coming. So, but still, just give me say 30 seconds, okay?
All right.
Okay, while we are waiting for Jordan to say his thoughts, let's hear some quick thoughts from some of our judges. Brandon, what do you gotta kind of give your thoughts on this interesting question round?
Man, I'll say this though, Paige, is Dan, mostly asked Tom's questions though, confirmingly and all that,
All right, I'm back.
No point in that as well.
You can keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, let Brandon keep going.
Wait, I'm gonna smoke real quick. Oh my God, Charlie! I knew it.
I'm gonna continue on, but dang it! But when on Charlie's end though of answering the questions though, he probably kind of change his own stance a little bit. So that's the reason why he originally went with yes, but now he said no on the question. Yes. Thank you, Jordan.
J-Man, don't influence the judges. Let them speak. That's their preference of what they want to say.
I know.
Yes, Dan. Thank you. Anyway, like I mentioned, this Charlie kind of contradicted himself, though. Like I mentioned, he originally was going to go for yes on that one. Now he said no. I mean, all that, with Charlie was saying that it was originally Kevin Nash and Punk went in the rivalry back in 2011, but unfortunately it didn't work out as well. It was at that time with Punk and Triple H at Night of Champions. Now later on, though, like what he mentioned, oh my God! And that match though between Nash and Triple H, sledgehammer on a pole. Oh my God! All I gotta say is why. That's what I'm gonna say. But that's another story, another time. And he also talked about the NWO Wolfpack with Conan not being benefited into that group. I give some credit to Charlie a little bit, but but the last one I know he did contradict himself on that part.
All right.
And that'll be the end of my take.
Okay. Trey. What were your thoughts before we go into Jordan's questions to Tom?
Those are good questions. And I really want to make sure I listen to everything that they were all saying because it's really important that they get both sides of the debate. And Brandon brought up a good point about Charlie contradicting himself about saying yes and then saying no. That is a good point and everything. But as far as whose side I'm on, I can't really say because I want you guys to finish up all what you're saying before I give you my official verdict.
Yeah, we are far from done. But Christian, your thoughts on so far the question round?
The question round, I found it a bit interesting in my opinion. Both sides had a great decisions on what they had to say with the questions. In my opinion, I believe Dan had answered them very thoroughly, or he answered them like in a good proper manner and all that. Same with Tom. With Charlie, I think he was a bit of in the middle. Like sometimes he would say yes, sometimes he would say no. But sometimes there's usually like in a between in a conversation. I mean, I give him credit for that. I'm thinking it was a bit of a middle conversation, but like I said, Dan and Tom, you two, answer your questions pretty good, and it's hard to tell on who had the opportunity and advantage right there in the questions.
All right, now, J-Man, your questions to Tom.
Okay. Let's first start off with one thing. Back in 1995, we all know that was the worst year in wrestling. WrestleMania 11. Do you believe that that Nash and Michaels could have done a very good job main eventing WrestleMania instead of hold on, what was the name of that guy again? Oh yeah, Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam Bigelow. And if they could have, how so? Even though there were size differences, and yet Michaels presented more athleticism and more technical skill than Nash.
Well, I'm sorry, Jordan. What was the question? Because I kind of was like, I felt like there was two questions there, but if that might be just my fault. Can you repeat the question?
Do you think that Michaels and Michaels and Diesel should have been in the main event of WrestleMania 11 instead of Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam Bigelow? Because even though Michaels performed like more technically and athletically, at WrestleMania.
I think that Diesel and Shawn Michaels should have headlined that WrestleMania. In fact, I believe that Lawrence Taylor had being a big name, had no business being in the main event. And Bam Bam Bigelow was a weird choice for him to go at. Now, I'm not just saying this because this is a Kevin Nash debate here, but I feel like, and you mentioned this, Dan, and I don't think it's a detriment to wrestlers, but you mentioned earlier that he didn't have many moves. I feel like a guy like that would have benefited going up against a guy like Lawrence Taylor, not Bam Bam Bigelow. I don't know why the WWF decided to go with Diesel Shawn Michaels, although I'm not complaining because it was a 20-minute match. And it was a pretty damn good 20-minute match, in my opinion. I think they should have main evented it. Even if Bam Bam was going up against Lawrence Taylor, I still think the Diesel Shawn Michaels match should have ended the show. I'm always the one to say that the WWF Championship should go off the air on a WrestleMania.
I agree with that. How many questions do I have to give, or do I? Or
Three, right?
He was given three, but I was brought up. May I rebuttal?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I was brought up. May I rebuttal?
Yes. Well, can you rebuttal?
So,
okay. Hold on 1 minute, Jordan. You did. Yes, I agree with Tom in the sense that yes, I think that the title should always go on last. But there is a situation here that shows precedence, and I think that we can all agree. WrestleMania, I believe it was 17. Triple H against Chris Jericho for the undisputed title.
No, it was 18.
18, okay. Was for the undisputed title, yes?
Yes, correct.
Now, that being said, there is a point when a showcase match should take precedence, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Would that not have been a better ending to have? Though it wasn't a great match, but we're talking about name value here. Hulk Hogan versus The Rock destroyed that crowd. It was two icons facing one another. That should have been the main event. And in that situation, that is when I feel the title can be superseded by a match itself. I also agree with Tom.
Go ahead, Dan.
I also agree with Tom in the regards that Bam Bam Bigelow was an interesting choice to go against Lawrence Taylor. But I understand the decision. Kevin Nash was a red-hot babyface. Like, I'm not saying in popularity, but he was a hardcore babyface.
He was over, just to be clear.
And to say that, but to say, you said what we were talking about his moves, it was his lack of moves that night caused one of what I consider one of the first double switches, where Shawn Michaels came out of that match because of his athleticism, because of his talent, because of his charisma. And again, I'm not a big Shawn Michaels fan, but I'll give the devil his due. Because of all of those attributes, that switch happened, and Kevin Nash walked away the lesser for it because he did not have the same, for lack of a better term, machismo that Michaels did. And I concede my time.
I mean, I want to rebuttal that because I don't disagree. But again, in my opinion, moves don't always. I mean, Shawn Michaels is a great wrestler. You get what we know, what we expect when we see Shawn Michaels. We know what we expect when we see Diesel. We don't expect Diesel to do high flying maneuvers and flip off the top rope onto the bottom. But
it's not much. Can I please say this real quick? It's not really much about going off the top rope or pretty much. It's basically, in ring prowess. If you're equal and better than someone.
And I agree. At the time, Dan even said it. He was white hot, despite the moves. And this is about when we watch wrestling, we want to see personalities. And despite that, he still was a personality. And it was a 20-minute match. That's a long match for Kevin Nash. I'm not saying that it's not something that he shouldn't have been able to pull off, but it was a long match. It was an interesting choice to have him go 20 minutes. Longest match on the card. Probably one of the longer matches of Nash's career. But again, it still should have ended it. Now, back to what you said, Dan, about that WrestleMania 18 thing. In that situation, I will agree, but I'll only say that if the match is with two guys where they supersede the title, where they become the title. Like our example, if like at this point Hogan and The Rock didn't need the title to be the main event of any single card they went on. If you supersede the title and the circumstances are right, this is a once in a lifetime thing where The Rock versus Hogan at WrestleMania. The situation was perfect. I still remember that promo where he's like, "How about you go on one-on-one with The Rock?" And he looked at him. I just remember like it was yesterday, man. I was hyped. I agree that there's circumstances that like happen once in a generation where it happens, and it only can be the main event. They chose, and this is again the hypocrisy of the WWE. They chose to put Bam Bam, Lawrence Taylor, main event in WrestleMania 11. And then they chose, nothing against Triple H and Chris Jericho, but they chose to put that down the card to make room for Triple H, Chris Jericho. That's a creative decision, which I'm not exactly sure, again, why they did that again. But I think that it could have been a million reasons that we might never know. And but regardless, Kevin Nash isn't on that card other than teaming up with Scott Hall. So I don't know. That doesn't help or hurt Kevin Nash. So
let me put it this way. Again, I'm trying to interject. Are you going to say that at the time Kevin Nash was more popular than Lawrence Taylor?
Kevin Nash was more popular than Bam Bam Bigelow.
That wasn't the question. The question was,
but there's a two-person thing. Like it takes two to tango.
But
and I will tell you that Lawrence Taylor is more popular than Kevin Nash, but that does not that does not mean that Kevin Nash could not have been the opponent. I get it. He's a babyface. I get it at the time. You couldn't have that happen. But there's ways where
that's where you answered my question there.
There's ways that they could have made it happen. The problem is back then it was uncharted territory for them to do that. I mean, they could have done a storyline. They could have done any storyline. They could have. Where was that WrestleMania taking place, by the way? Where was WrestleMania 11? Do we know?
It took place at Hartford, Connecticut, in the Hartford Civic Center.
Okay, so there's your answer.
J-Man's clutch with the trivia. I gotta give him that.
He would have been in Connecticut. There's no way Lawrence Taylor isn't going to go over. If Lawrence Taylor was in Boston, he'll probably get booed.
I think we can all agree it's a matter of time, placement, and overall what you're given. And I'll leave it at that. I'm going to mute real quick because I have to rock a piss.
Okay.
Okay. Your second question?
All right. In the main event of SummerSlam 95, do you think it really benefited Nash during that time when he spent against Mabel for the world title? Because at the end of the day, all Nash got was, a broken back. But still, do you think it really benefited Mabel to job out to Nash, even though Nash said he would give a jackknife powerbomb to the guy, but he never could? But they never improvised if they could have done that. So do you think that really did a lot of good for, Mabel, even though it didn't really benefit nobody in that time? Because that main event at SummerSlam was pretty bad. But what are your thoughts of who it really benefited?
I will say that that main event was forgettable, and I think I don't think it was all Diesel. I think a lot of it was King Mabel. King Mabel got pushed. I don't know why the WWF decided to push King Mabel so hard. They tried to push him so hard to become like the next King Kong Bundy. And I don't know what the idea behind that was. There's other people on the card that Nash could have feuded with that would have made way more sense, but they wanted Mabel to be the guy. I don't think it benefited. I don't think Mabel had any business being there. I think he was I don't think he was ready, if he'll ever be ready. That's my opinion on Mabel, though. I know the WWF was looking for big guys, and Mabel kind of fit the bill. I know they were looking for somebody to be that Yokozuna, that like I said earlier, the King Kong Bundy. But none of us remember that pay-per-view because that pay-per-view was stolen by wasn't a ladder match? Yeah, the ladder match for the Intercontinental title. And that I don't blame on Nash. I blame that on Mabel. And the fact that Mabel got pushed in so many main events, in such a weird time where the WWF was really had such bad ratings, which is another thing. 95, everyone blames on Diesel, but yet the WWF's pushing Mabel. So maybe their opponent selection wasn't as strong as it could have been.
They had many other options, but the problem is they chose him to try, and carry a match with Nash.
I think they were hoping that Nash would carry with Mabel, but Mabel, nobody can carry.
And there you go. And there you go.
And then why do you think? Okay, how was Shawn Michaels' match against Mabel?
That's a whole thing that you're talking about David versus Goliath there.
I'm asking you though. Shawn Michaels couldn't even get Mabel over, or he refused to work with him because he knew.
Well, that's Shawn Michaels for you back then.
So Diesel took the mantle, and Diesel decided to take on that challenge. And unfortunately, Shawn Michaels, maybe he should have listened to his clique a little more and did what Shawn did.
All right.
I
got one more.
Final question.
And this is the better question. Do you really think that in the final days of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash's contract with the WWF, do you honestly think that it was actually a positive thing for them to do to break kayfabe, in Madison Square Garden, and pretty much, do you think that was a really good thing for them to do, or what was it, or was it something that needed to be done just to, what?
Well, I'm glad you asked this question. This is a great question. I love this question. So I like kayfabe. I think it's a great thing for the business, but I will say this: if it was not for that moment, I don't know if we ever would have gotten the Attitude Era, Because that moment, if we not forget, was displayed across the Attitude Era as this blasphemy that happened. It became a storyline, which then launched later on into other arcing storylines that put other people over. They used it in the Ruthless Aggression Era. They used that whole thing. That moment was a hint, a preview to what was to come later down the road. And that was the most successful time in the business. Ratings that we have not seen since. So yes, my opinion is that probably should not have happened because I like kayfabe. But that moment launched wrestling into one of its most prosperous times in wrestling history. And if it didn't, why was it displayed like a banister across the Attitude Era, leaking on into the Ruthless Aggression? And why do we still talk about it? Because it's one of the most controversial things that happened. We probably would have forgot it. Who reminded us of it? Who reminded us of the curtain call? Oh, that's right. The WWF reminded us of it in the Attitude Era. They shoved it down our throat.
Since Dan interject something, could I actually interject something to that, what Tom was saying?
Well, to be fair, my name was brought up. That's why I interjected. And I don't know at any point did J-Man bring up Charlie.
And I didn't bring you up, so you don't count. Anyway.
I do have a good
Charlie, I'm afraid to have you talk because I think you lost us points in the last round. So
no, it's actually good.
I renounce my objection. Please speak on, Charlie.
Thank you.
Oh God.
About the curtain call. Let's not forget who was originally supposed to win the '96 King of the Ring, Triple H. And as punishment of the curtain call, who won that King of the Ring in '96 instead of him? Oh, yes, it was Stone Cold Steve Austin. And what do we get from that win? Austin 316.
So you're saying that Kevin Nash is responsible for Stone Cold Steve Austin because of the curtain call?
Who knows what would have happened if we went with the original plan of Triple H winning?
So Kevin Nash,
the trajectory of everything that happened.
Okay.
That's opinion based. That is conjecture. You're literally saying that Kevin Nash is responsible for the entirety of Stone Cold Steve Austin's
ring.
Okay, can I?
Wait, hold on. You're literally saying that Kevin Nash is responsible for the entirety of Stone Cold Steve Austin's wrong. I want y'all to hear this, judges. Paige, Tom,
don't hear this.
I want you to hear this.
Part in it because the curtain call happened, launched that whole thing.
Can I have?
Can we forget about what Charlie said?
Can I have a rebuttal, please?
Remember what I said.
Can I have my rebuttal, please, if I may?
It's your time. It's your time, Jordan.
Yeah, you get a.
Okay, that's where I have to disagree with you on that one about the curtain call being responsible for the Attitude Era. You want to know what really caused the spark of the Attitude Era? It was the fact that Vince McMahon knew he had to change. Okay, he had to for business purposes because WCW and ECW was kicking his anus so bad, like you could tell by the ratings where it wasn't good for him. And plus, the hardcore elements and the trash talk and all that other stuff was influenced by ECW, while a few performance, things like the cruiserweight division brought out, like the light heavyweight division would come into the WWF. That's what really also made something within WWF to start changing. So
Jordan,
for the curtain call to be really a major factor into to start the Attitude Era would be a very vast understatement.
Jordan and Paige, Charlie did interject. I just want to say one thing, and Tom, you've played this flawlessly. I can't deny you were the stiffest competition I've had in years. I love it. But
I just wish Charlie didn't talk.
But Charlie has interjected something I find it blasphemous. And you said that the curtain call was responsible for the Attitude Era. I would have to disagree and say one name is responsible for the Attitude Era. Bret Hart. Vince McMahon's issue, Bret Hart, caused, in my opinion, the Attitude Era.
I actually disagree, but this has nothing to do with Nash. I would say Hulk Hogan is responsible for the Attitude Era.
What?
because
my rebuttal. I'm content. It's cool, Jordan.
If Hogan didn't go to the NWO and create all that controversy, then would WWF feel the need to react the way they did? And Jordan brought this up and said that the WWF and this, that, Vince McMahon made that decision because he saw across the street, or not across the street, I'll say down south rather. He saw all the success that they were having with their the Nitro girls and them dancing around and all the realistic storylines and all the hush hush and all this backstage stuff spilling out on purpose in the dirt sheets. He knew that was happening, and he looked at his side and he was like, well, that's not happening over here. And we got to try to sprinkle some of that into our stuff. So we made DX, the alternative to the NWO. And then they had their style of thing. And it was kind of like a mirror image. And later on, the WWF ended up getting deeper in 99, where it blew up, where I started watching it religiously. I was a WCW guy, still watched some of the WWF though in 98. My point is, Hulk Hogan turning heel in 96 was the spark that started the Attitude Era. That doesn't have anything to do with Nash.
Okay, fair enough.
Hulk Hogan, if it was not for him going heel and all that stuff happening, but this isn't the debate.
True. You're very right. You're very right.
You're
absolutely right.
I'm just saying that the only reason why we remember the curtain call, the only reason why the curtain call is a remembrance thing is because it was used as a tool during the Attitude Era to get over stars, and they basically used it as a way to progress storylines. If they never did that, it would have been gone and forgotten. But
Mr. Willis, you did say that the curtain call was responsible at the beginning, was responsible for the Attitude Era.
Okay, well then I have to retract that statement because it's just. But I do think that if the curtain call didn't happen, then a lot of those storylines that happened during the Attitude Era would not have been as legit.
So to bring this full circle and say it all, wrap it in a bow, many things contributed to the launch of the Attitude Era, not just Kevin Nash.
Yes, but I will say this: the curtain call was not a negative thing on Kevin Nash's career. In fact,
I've never said that. I said not on his career.
Jordan was saying that. I don't think it's that negative. I don't think it's.
I didn't say it was negative on his career.
So what do you think it is, Jordan?
I think it just changed. You know, like you said. I think it's like what Dan said. It killed kayfabe. That's much for sure. That much is for certain.
Do you think that maybe kayfabe needed to die for the WWF to succeed?
To be honest with you, if you show all the stunts and the equipment or whatever it is that you do, like the tricks and all that, like, and break, character, then you pretty much, put the business in somewhat of a.
I think that's a different discussion, though. Sorry, I'm interested on your perspective on that, but I think
that's my perspective.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that Nash, pretty much ruined it all, but he did have a part in it.
Yeah, and I don't think it ruined it, and that's my opinion on it. I think it helped evolve storylines later on in wrestling.
And that's what we'll have to all agree to disagree.
I just think the WWF just stole too many ideas. That's what I think.
From WCW, which Nash was a part of.
I think
and ECW, which he wasn't a part of.
They didn't have a hardcore title in the WWF. I mean,
again, this is pissing on a wall. I think the questions were answered, and
yeah, I was about to say. I think that we'll probably have to have another debate on the Attitude Era for another day. But a lot has been said back and forth. A lot has been said back and forth. We've had a lot of good reasonings. We've had a lot of good questions. We had a lot of good answers. But now I think this is like this is the final moment where, you got to convince these judges to your side of the stance. Basically, like, this is your final statement. This is your final statement. This is your chance to get the judges on your side. Don't leave anything back. That's all I got to say. Don't leave anything back and give it all you got. And I'll start off with Hangman because Hangman's been rather quiet ever since the smoke break. Let's Hangman,
go first so we forget.
All right. How much time do we have here?
You have as much time as you need.
Okay, perfect. All right. Gentlemen, we've had a very good back and forth debate here talking about Kevin Nash. And the fact that Kevin Nash is being talked about this much throughout the past few months, regardless of difference of opinion, just shows how polarizing the man is. But you have fans of his, and you have people who think he was a cancer to the business. Kevin Nash, for better or for worse, is if it wasn't for Kevin Nash, the professional wrestling industry could be viewed differently today. He was a part of the highs and lows of different companies. He was a part of the lows of WWF. He was a part of the highs of WCW. Because he's seen the worst, he's seen the best. Kevin Nash has had some of the best rivals, has been a part of some of the most talked about segments in all of professional wrestling. The formation of the NWO being the top of the card. Even later on in life, his return in the Royal Rumble in 2011 was one of the more memorable returns of the modern era. He also had, like I said, about the helping the younger talent, a part of Main Event Mafia, one of, if not TNA's greatest storyline in its history. Right before Hogan killed it, but that's discussed for a different story. Anyway, he also was a part of some of the worst parts of 1995. But was it really his fault? I say no. He was just dealt a bad hand by creative and by the people running the show, and the lack of viewership because they were getting tired of the old bullshit of people with second jobs and people dressed as mantars. Nash was a part of one of the most controversial moments in professional wrestling, a few of them. The ending of the streak in 1998, the curtain call. But throughout all that, Nash has made a career of a successful career even through those misfortunes. Some people would say that the streak's a misfortune, but I'm more referred to the curtain call. And he has profited and made a living off of those moments and those matches, if you will. Nash is not only great as a performer, not only in the mic, but in the ring, because a man of his size able to have the career that he had is not like, look at Andre the Giant. Didn't have that long of a career. Nash had a long career, and if his legs didn't give out on him, he'd probably still be wrestling to this day like the Big Show. Nash will always be one of the top giants and one of the guys that helped out the wrestling industry, for better or for worse. Because with the bad that Jordan and Mr. XP said, there's a lot of good in there. Because if it wasn't for the NWO with Kevin Nash, there wouldn't be no Attitude Era, there'd be no DX, there would be no Stone Cold. Let's just be honest. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Nash is a benefit to the wrestling industry, to the history of wrestling, not a detriment. Now I pass it over to Mr. Willis.
All right.
Charlie, I'm impressed. You basically said everything I wanted to say, and rather than sit here on a 25-minute speech about everything that Charlie just said, I will say this. A detriment to wrestling doesn't create this many moments that we sit here and talk about for 2 hours. A detriment to wrestling doesn't, even though you say, or everyone's saying, that in TNA, he may or may not have built these stars. A detriment to wrestling doesn't build these stars. And I will say this. People were saying, oh, he doesn't build stars. He doesn't build stars. You know, Conan was in the Wolfpack, as was mentioned earlier. And somebody like him became a star once he entered the Wolfpack. So maybe Kevin Nash sitting back there being like, I want somebody, to join the Wolfpack like a Conan. Maybe he's not such a bad guy. Maybe he doesn't get along with everybody backstage, but he does see ones that have good mic skills, good potential, puts him in a position to use that. Because I remember a few moves that Conan had. Conan's a great wrestler, Mexico, all the stuff he did in AAA. My point is, he saw talent and he did build him in 1998. I'm sorry with the dates. I'm pretty sure it was 98 where the Wolfpack blew up. So he didn't just do it in TNA. There's other instances where he did it. People backstage, cutthroat. It is the wrestling business. Nobody's in the wrestling business to sniff roses and shake hands. People in the wrestling business to succeed. A detriment, if we're going to say he's a detriment, then so was Stone Cold Steve Austin. If we're going to say he's a detriment, then so was Hulk Hogan. If he was a detriment, then so was every other wrestler like the Triple H's and the Shawn Michaels of the wrestling world, because they all did the same stuff backstage. But if you're not comfortable with saying that they're detriments, then you shouldn't feel comfortable saying Kevin Nash is either.
Okay. And
Jordan,
yeah,
Jordan, go ahead.
Yep.
All I gotta say is this: I didn't hear much of Tom's stuff because I had to go to the front porch and get my meal. But to put it bluntly, I really will not deny the contributions that Nash did give to the business. That much is true. My problems with him was more of the politics and more of, how he put a lot of people down, especially when it came down to, the Rey Mysterio angle. I mean, after that angle, where he had, that stipulation where it was, I don't know if it was a hair versus mask match, but I do know this. If Mysterio lost, he'd have to unmask. And after that mask, the rest of his run in WCW was more like a joke, that because it tarnishes the reputation of a luchador. So for Nash to do that was pretty, unfair and unjust. And especially where if you have creative control, it causes anarchy and chaos. You're allowing, the inmates run the asylum. That's pretty much, how it was in WCW when you had guys like Nash, Hogan, or Hall with creative control contracts. I mean, put the money aside. It's more about creativity at the end of the day. See, Nash can, everybody could say that he can, that he did contribute a lot, but at the end of the day, when it came to WCW, it was all chaos. Big Show said himself, it wasn't day-to-day business, it was day-to-day chaos. So, and plus, for me to convince the judges, here's one thing I can say. At least I'm not kissing your butts and giving you so much, smoke up your anuses. Not like a certain someone on this panel.
Jordan.
No, that's just it. That's all I gotta say.
It's good.
Now you go ahead. I'm gonna let you take it away.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the time, Jordan. Phenomenal. Thank you for hosting this. I think we've had a lovely debate here so far. And to close this out, esteemed judges, commenters in the chat, what we have here is a tale of inches and miles in history. Now, as those inches and miles go on, we have to decide and tell ourselves, do the ends justify the means? We've talked about Kevin Nash in his past. We talked about him in WCW doing amazing work with what he was given, but yet not getting over because of gimmicks. And that's what wrestling was at the time, gimmicks. He didn't have the stroke, if you will, to do anything to anyone of any significance. But what happens when you give a man who's at the bottom power? Does he take that power and use it for good, or does he take that power and use it for evil? Now, I'll never say that Kevin Nash is a horrible person, but I will say he took advantage of situations. Inches and miles, ladies and gentlemen. Inches and miles is what we're getting at. When he was given that power, did he use that power to elevate others or elevate himself? When he was in a position at the top, did he use that power to elevate himself even higher than talent that was going to take over upon his eventual departure from the industry? What I've hoped that we've conveyed here in all of this is that, yes, we cannot deny the contributions that Kevin Nash has given. Wrestlers are paid better now. Giants are considered attractions now. And part of that was the Kevin Nashes of the world, the Andre the Giants, the Big Shows. But at the end of the day, if we're looking at whether he was a positive influence or he was a detriment, I feel that his actions lean towards the negative. Just because you have small, minute moments where you do good, henceforth his TNA run, henceforth, as they brought up, his interactions with someone like Conan, they do not outweigh the many controversial things that he did do wrong. The finger poke of doom. His lack of charisma at many times in his career. The guaranteed contracts that got over, bringing in someone like Dennis Rodman, making his paycheck bigger than others, stifling others monetarily, who were unable to reach those achievements he was able to. Yes, Kevin Nash did many things, and he will be remembered in the annals of history of wrestling as one of the better wrestlers. But the detriments, in my opinion, far outweigh the good. If you were literally to put this on a scale, and being fair, using the blind woman of justice would have to go against Kevin Nash and his contributions. I feel he was selfish in his time, and because of that selfishness, I and my confidant here, JMANzLegit, will have to always say Kevin Nash was a detriment to the wrestling business. Thank you for your time, and thank you for hearing our arguments.
All right, here we go. We have a lot. That was definitely a lot from both sides of the tail end panel. I'm pretty sure that you guys have been thinking, you've had your mind set out, and that this is going to be a very tough decision. This is going to be a very tough decision. But Trey, I'm going to start off with you.
Before Paige, can I say one last thing?
Mm-hmm.
No matter how this goes, I want to just be clear. No matter how this goes, and whatever they decide. At the end of the day, no matter what we've said here, ultimately as fans and viewers, it's up to you to decide what you think. You can this isn't solidify anything. This is just men having a debate. So I want to make that clear. Don't walk away thinking that everyone has to agree with what's said here. And thank you for that.
Okay, and Trey.
I don't know if he heard you.
Huh? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
All right, Trey, what are your thoughts?
Well, this is a great debate. I want to commend both sides for really sticking to their guns and not backing down. That, like I said before, that is be respected. And Tom, I have to, man, you really just, man, you impressed me big time with a lot of things you were saying. You really impressed me, bro. Bottom of my heart, bro. I mean that. But after hearing everything, there are two quotes that come to mind of this whole debate. One quote is, "Living in the past, there is no future to it." That's one quote that comes to mind. And the other quote, well, not really a quote, this is more what I believe, is that sometimes, no matter how much good you do, the negatives outweigh the positives. And throughout this whole thing, I was really neutral for like a lot of the debate. I really was. But what turned me over to J-Man and Dan XP's side is when he said that, yes, he has done some good things, and you can't deny that. He's done some good things. But mentioning about how he got with the clique and mentioning how they abused people and bullied them and buried them. And I mean, let's be honest here. Kevin Nash could have helped some of those people get over, but did he choose to? No. He took advantage of the opportunity that was handed to him, and he benefited. He was a huge beneficiary. He wasn't the only, but he was a huge beneficiary. And let's be honest, guys. Backstage politics, that runs these wrestling companies. Like, the fans, they matter. But if the backstage politics bit stuff, if it's not like smooth, then your career could go down the toilet. I mean, if the bosses don't like you, or if enough guys with enough influence don't like you, you'll never be a world champion, or you'll never be a big star. So at the end of this thing, I have to say, although yes, he did do some good, I have to give my verdict is J-Man's and Dan XP, because I'm sorry, Kevin Nash could have decided to put people over, but he simply didn't. He took advantage of the opportunity that he was handed, and he did what he did, and that's not forgivable. I mean, and before I hand the thing to somebody else, I want to say, yes, Kevin Nash did go to TNA, and he did help some of those. But think about it. Did he really do that because he wanted to, or did he do that because he was told that he had to? That's something I want you guys to think about. So at the end of the day, Dan XP and J-Man, you guys, you got my vote for this one.
Okay, that's 1 point for Dan and J-Man. Christian, your final thoughts.
I'd say this. Both sides had some reasonable points. Both sides had some good arguments. Both sides had good questions. But at the end of the day, it's all about who had the better side. In my opinion, well, basically, the way I see it, Nash, he started off good, and then, but at the same time, I think once you get the contract and all of that, you think you're the big star, it all gets in your head, and you just want to, say that you're the top guy. And I understand that, yes, he probably brought up lethal and, mostly machine guns or whoever the heck said it, and yes, they became stars and all that, but I don't know. I think at the end of the day, I don't know, with Nash, I think he puts himself a bit over saying that he's like the head of the table. I'm thinking that he's like almost what Roman Reigns is doing. It's like he's the top. He wants himself to be the top star in all of this, in all of through his career. He might have some ups, he might have some downs, but with this debate right here, it's a difficult one, but I have to say, I'd say I give the point to Dan and J-Man.
Okay. And Brandon.
Oh boy, I mean, for that, it's just like debate. Some great arguments between both of these guys, along with great questions. I mean, my gosh. I mean, like I mentioned this, like Nash did some good things back in the day, but and then some bad. The problem is, like I mentioned, this is like, say, back to SummerSlam '95. I go back. You guys discussed it. It was like it was King Mabel and thing along with Diesel. I mean, was Mabel the thing? I mean, absolutely. I mean, maybe not. Maybe and that's the thing. It's just like you gotta have to have the common sense into this perspective. And I mean, going back with TNA as an example. Let's just say that. He did have some great good guys go on top a little bit, like say the Mostly Machine Guns with Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley, and of course the Paparazzi Productions, and of course the X Division, and along with Black Machismo, Jay Lethal, and many other, and including the Main Event Mafia later on. And let's just say, I mean, at least Dan did a good job of responding to Tom's questions and all that. Jordan did the same with Charlie and all that. It's oh god, and this is gonna be tough for me too. I mean, they're both good. I'll say this, and I have to say, which one's better? Oh gosh. Whether you dislike Kevin Nash or like Kevin Nash, you have your own take about the guy. And the thing is, for my decision, I got to go with Jordan and Dan on this one.
Right, I guess he's a detriment to wrestling. It's official.
Well, unanimous.
Can Can I rebuttal? Like just over all this?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, man.
I appreciate that, and I thank y'all. But let's be honest. This was a debate, and we were on sides, and we had to make an opinion. And as we're sitting here talking about this, Tom, the fucking arguments, bro. Fuck, dude. Like you had me questioning myself. I mean, like let's just like say it, and this is not like blowing smoke up anybody's ass, but let's just be honest. Like the man, like Tom here, fucking just had me. This is the fucking like one of the hardest debates I've ever been in because he made so many valid points. I'm glad we switched it up because there's no way I could have ensnared Tom in one of those traps. Charlie, you fell in it, hook, line, and sinker.
You know, just full disclosure here, since you guys won, I was coaching Charlie. I was like, he's trapping you. Don't answer that question. You know, stuff like.
You know what I was doing when I was with my mic muted when I was listening to the judges, you know, give their final decision for each.
J-Man was coaching me the entire time.
No, that was the other guy. But anyway, thing is, you know what I was doing with my mic muted? You know, when I saw those judges, you know, say me and you, Dan.
He was doing a little dance, wasn't he?
No, I was going like, oh yeah.
Oh, well, it was a good debate. I guess we know that he was a detriment to wrestling. It's official.
And I'm gonna have to rebuttal that, Tom. After end all this, we've had a great fucking discussion, and I don't think that he is. I think he's evened out for me. I'm not gonna say he's a detriment, but I'm not gonna say he was the greatest for wrestling. I'll say that he was a part of wrestling history that we will always remember for the good and the bad, and that's all because of Tom. That's what makes a good debate. Whenever you have someone who can make the other side go, you know what? Let me rethink my stance. So Tom, hats off to you, man. Like the judges reflect how they do, and it's our job to try to convince them. It's what we're here for. And damn, Tom, damn.
But I knew Dan. I knew.
Actually, I got something to say here, Tom.
Go ahead.
You put up a better argument than Charlie.
Well, I told you last night, Jordan. See, Dan, last night Jordan was like, "You've never been in a debate with us," and I was like, "Jordan, I've been doing content creation since 2008. I've lost, I've won, I've talked to some people that just don't budge. I've been outsmarted when I was 17 years old. I know how it goes. I try not to bury Charlie. Note to you: don't bring up negative stuff when you're on the seat. Let the other guy bring it up. If you don't bring it up, then you'll win the round. But don't bring up stuff like." Oh, he did this and it was bad. Now, just try to avoid that unless you're going to reinforce what you're going to say. That's just
yeah. And I got one thing, Charlie. What was the deal there earlier with the contradiction, buddy?
Well, it's because I was coaching him. I was like, you're falling into a trap. Like,
yeah, I know. I want to know.
Back. It was the fact that during the
but I want him.
Yeah, I'm going to say this for the final record. I'm man enough to take this loss. Just so I'm not quiet. They're trying to come up to me. Anyway, I'm going to say this for the final record. I will take the loss to Dan XP because I knew I knew he was going to be a competition to us. I will still hang my hat knowing that I beat JMANzLegit single-handedly with no backup from Tom from Dan. Nice.
And I'll say this: J-Man called it. He was going to do that. So again, J-Man just won again. J-Man just won again.
I will say that.
Let Tom. Well, hold on before you say it. Let Tom finish because
let me just quickly. Sorry,
wait, can you go back to the beginning because I didn't hear you. I was too distracted. I called it right from what?
You said that Charlie was going to literally say that I beat him, not you.
Aha! Aha! You see that? You see that? You can't take. Okay, let's think of it like this. In Make Believe Land, I pinned Charlie in the ring while Dan and Tom fought each other outside the ring in the tag team match. The end.
Basically, this is what it was. This is what it was. I will give you that.
Me and Tom and Dan took you.
Charlie, shut up. Let Tom talk.
So basically, here's what happened. It was me and Dan in the wrestling ring, and Jordan and Charlie were the managers. That's how it felt to me. But Jordan had some good points. Jordan definitely brought stuff to the table. Charlie did good, but Charlie, again, like I felt like sometimes you were falling in traps, And I also felt like you were I felt like you were falling in traps, and I felt like you were confused. You were like not answering questions. You were like going on about other stuff, and it just the object is to convince other people, not to convince yourself. So you got to kind of focus on that. But Dan's a perfect person. Now we probably won't get many debates because me and Dan seem to have a lot in common. So it's very hard to debate with somebody when you are talking and it's almost like, oh, you're kind of right. We kind of both have this idea where like, because we're kind of around the same age. So a lot of times he'll bring up something that I had forgotten, but then it like takes me back because I remember it when it was new. So like we'll probably have debates in the future, but it's a guy, me and Dan have a lot in common, but like it's good debate. I think that me and you going at it is perfect for content wise, and I look forward to maybe doing it on your stream, my stream, for another phenomenal one stream, you coming on the Outcast. There's definitely something to be had there, and I'm glad that we were able to have a debate. Win, lose, or draw, that wasn't what this was about. This was about a meme that was just getting so out of control that Jordan was getting pissed off about. So we did a debate to end it, and it's over. We can all breathe. Kevin Nash meme is done, dead, rest in peace.
Well, technically,
Hey, can I add something?
if we look at it this way, I won one, and then they won one.
No, we're not going to do the tie. We're not going to do the tie thing.
Charlie, dude.
Be
it's
humble
true.
in defeat, Charlie. For
Yeah,
once in your life, be humble in defeat.
I will say this. This was much better than the first one. I will say that.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know what? There was no.
I think your
there was
guys'
no-
points
Go
were
ahead.
more solidified with this one.
Yeah, and you know what? The funny thing is, this wasn't a biased audience this time.
See, look, he's still making excuses.
You're the king of excuses, Charlie. So you have no room to say anything.
I will agree that it wasn't a biased audience because we had some people on our side and we had some people on that side, and then we had people that were on both sides. So it wasn't that biased. It was fair.
Hey, can I ask something right quick? Just a small thing.
Yeah, I want to hear what Trey says.
Okay.
So Charlie, you shut up.
Okay,
Go ahead.
like I said before, and like I was just gonna say before, when you, it's not fair for someone who has potential to be a great star be held back all because the people who are in charge and are not friends of you. Like that's not fair. Like they may not look like a star to you, but how do you know for sure if they don't get their chance to show what they got? So that's one of the biggest reasons why I say Kevin Nash was a detriment, because it's not fair for Kevin Nash to use his power to deliberately hold people back who might have been. I mean, I'm not saying they were going to be, but how could he know that every guy on the roster was a failure? How could he have known? I'm pretty sure there could have been one or two guys on the roster who might have
proper debate. A proper debate is basically like, look, and this is how you and I think Tom, you and I will agree on this. The best way to be better at debating is to debate the side you don't agree with.
Yeah. Okay.
Because look, I may not always agree with something, but if we're having a civil debate, I'm chosen to be on a side, I have to find the value in that side. I have to, as much as I may not agree with it, it is my job, no different than a lawyer or a prosecutor or a defender or a defense, to come back and say, hey, this is the strong suits of this, and I have to carry those strong suits to try to convey my argument. Say what you want about Kevin Nash. One of my big issues with him is that he called Eddie Guerrero a vanilla midget.
Yeah.
Eddie Guerrero, in my opinion, is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, Latin American star to ever, and that's arguable because, some people will put Rey Mysterio up there, but I just had a thing for Eddie Guerrero.
Well, when you looked at Rey Mysterio's thing, the thing is he got pushed because in spite of Eddie Guerrero's death. It was never really a big thing, but anyway.
Well, no, and I won't even go that far, because if you go back, the talent that was Rey Mysterio, no different than fucking Halloween Havoc, him and Eddie Guerrero when he wore the Phantom gear. There's arguments to be had that Kevin Nash is one of the greatest of all time. There's no way. There's arguments to be said that, but here in this civil debate, we were able to prove our point because, and I'll say it, Charlie. I'll say it, Charlie.
No recount.
You fell, Charlie.
My cousin.
Even with Tom
won this
coaching
one
you,
easily.
even with Tom holding you and literally with Tom, like trying to carry you in the background. And I'll say this: I didn't coach Jordan. The only thing that I've talked to Jordan about before this debate, and then he'll tell you, I said we don't need JMANzLegit here. We're going to need Jordan Little to come and be calm, cool, and collected. Because I knew as soon as Charlie got in his head, we're gonna get fucking mudslinging, and we would have.
Charlie tried to get.
Oh,
that out.
he did.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he did once or twice. But the thing is, I didn't go shouting at him.
Well,
I have low battery life.
like I said, I will.
Hold on. Will wanted to say
Will.
something. He has low battery.
First of all, Will, like I tried to get you to be a judge earlier, but what happened, man?
I wasn't logged into this Facebook account, so I didn't see your message until like 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, you had a question.
But I was
earlier.
commenting in your comment section. Yeah, I had a couple questions, but fuck the questions. I can see now why Joe Biden is the president of the United States listening to this debate.
Oh,
Will,
okay,
who won? In your opinion, Will.
Okay.
In your opinion, who won? Will, I'm curious.
My cousin from Boston here, Tom, won.
Oh yeah,
Easily won. Easily won. Like I don't understand what you people are thinking. Like if he's a detriment, listen, if he's a detriment to the business, right? Again, this was my key question. Who would you replace him with if you were to remove him? In the annals
to be
of
fair
WWE
to
and
Will,
WCW history.
Well, to be fair though, you are biased towards Nash. That's the thing. That's why the judges had to be completely.
That's not true. Why is that? Who said that? I'm a Bret Hart fan. I mean, there's no bias here. I just.
Oh, I thought. Then I'm sorry. You know.
Okay, you know what? Okay, hold on. I got it. Okay, Will, can I answer that question for you? Who would have really done it, good instead of Kevin Nash? In WCW terms, I would have said Bret Hart.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Because
how would Bret Hart have fit into the Wolf Pack?
Well, one, he still had that bad guy mentality that he had from 1997. You know, it's still carried on with him.
Do you envision Bret Hart listening to gangster rap with Conan?
No, but I do know this: red and black would be better than pink and black.
That's a good point, Will.
Fuck, next time we do a debate, it's got to be the Boston brothers against me and somebody else.
So you're from Boston?
I wish I was here. I wish I was here for this one, man.
I'm a Bret Hart fan, and I don't think he would fit in the Wolf Pack. Like,
you're from Boston, Will?
Wait,
I'm from Massachusetts. I'm born and bred Massachusetts. I'm from Lawrence, though, not from Boston.
Lawrence, also
20 minutes
about,
away.
20 minutes from Boston.
I figured Boston brothers sounded like a good tagline.
Wait.
But
Jay said he challenges me to wrestling trivia.
What?
J-Man, quit while you're ahead, man. Let
You're
it
not going to win tonight.
This guy is real quick.
Not me. It wasn't me. That's Jay Houston.
Hey, real
quick.
Here's a good point that nobody mentioned.
I will say two things. One,
Charlie, shut up.
Hold on, just real quick. If Kevin Nash was such a detriment to the business, why are we still talking about him in 2021?
Yes. Thank you. Somebody sees that.
That's
okay,
all
so that point was brought up. Again, this was a debate, and I was on a side, and I'll be honest with y'all, I don't hate Kevin Nash, and I think he has a lot of
demand a recount.
No more recounts. No recounts.
Yeah, I agree. That wouldn't be ideal. Bret Hart in the NWO.
That'd be kind of weird, right? It wasn't he in the NWO, but it was weird. So we already got a preview.
He was in the NWO, and it didn't work.
He was in Jeff Jarrett's NWO.
Yeah, he was in NWO 2000 with Hall and Nash. So
wasn't it Bret Hart's NWO and then it became Jeff Jarrett's NWO?
Broke 50,000 guitars, never drew a dime.
Well, but he did get recognized as the guy who broke a guitar over an old lady's head. So,
well, I'll put it this way: that is a debate that I can't win. I can't sell fucking Jeff Jarrett. I can't. There's no way I could win that debate.
You can sell like that. I'll admit. Like whoever thinks they could sell a Jeff Jarrett debate is a damn fool. And that's me coming from me. Now I'm gonna say two things. One, Jay Houston wants to challenge me to wrestling trivia on the next Outcast.
And be fair, that's Jay Houston, not J-Man.
You know what I find hilarious? Fucking Charlie always finds a way to promote his shit on everybody's stuff.
I haven't said a word about my stream. He's talked about his HP whatever.
HTPW.
Jay, just because I lost, you think that's going to be an easy win for you?
Hey, Jay Houston, give me a call. We'll work some shit out.
Jay, I accept your challenge one-on-one next Monday on the Hangman Outcast.
Well, wait a minute,
I'll have
Charlie.
Tom be the host of said trivia.
Charlie.
So the debate's going to be trivia. Tom will pick the questions. If
Charlie!
What?
I got another one. I got another one real quick. Here's another one. I think you guys. I thought you guys.
Hold on, Jordan.
Fuck
Yeah,
Charlie
we'll
and
go.
fuck you. Let me say something. All right, so here's the thing. I think you guys mentioned it briefly. You said something about him being cutthroat in the behind-the-scenes politics, but that's what everybody was doing at that time. Everybody was doing it. You can't hate on the guy because he has a high IQ, a superbly high IQ.
Yes, even the ones, Wilt, what you're saying, even the ones that didn't do it, tried to do it, and they couldn't do it as good.
Right,
Well, see,
exactly.
that's the thing.
So
Like,
you can't hate on
the
that doesn't make him a detriment to the business because he did something that everybody was doing better than
going
them.
back to the debate.
That's why
though,
they made him a booker.
Going back to the debate, Will, that's what I'm saying. It was my burden to prove to the judges that his negatives outweighed his positives, and I used that because so many people have attributed those.
And I disagree with that.
And that's fair, but like I said, it wasn't. And
I disagree.
I may have taken a different tact with you in trying to convey that, but the audience here, I conveyed what I believed would influence them to side with my argument, and that's all a real legitimate debate is.
Yeah.
Knowing my audience and knowing how to properly convey what I'm trying to prove as my argument.
Anyway, I was trying to tell you, Charlie, I don't know how you're going to have that debate with Jay Houston because Jay Houston's Wi-Fi is more laggier than David's.
I know, which I'm like thinking, why even challenge when you have that thing? If you give better Wi-Fi, I'll be glad to, now I'll be honest, a win over you, Jay Houston, that's a start, but
so wait, I just got a win over you, Charlie. What does that equal to?
That's a start.
Well, since the last two debates I won,
the thing is, isn't Jay Houston? Isn't he that same guy who tried to be on this very panel that we're on right now?
Correct.
The unbiased judge, yes.
I'll say this though, just because Jay and I get along well, and yes, we live in the same state. Listen here. I wouldn't have wanted Jay to be on this panel, to be honest, because the thing is, I'm not going to win through, just because someone likes me or is on my, Can
I just point out that fucking Brandon Martin has a fucking clipboard? That motherfucker took this shit serious, man. Fuck. This dude had a clipboard and pen. He was ready to go.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Well, Dan, the thing is, when it comes to Brandon Martin, he's all business.
I retract me telling him to eat a dick. Thank you.
He doesn't screw around, not like Charlie.
Tom, you and I, Tom, can walk away from this shaking hands, but you know that this J-Man Charlie fucking rivalry will never ever end.
I know
it's
funny.
fucking.
Me and you were like, okay, that was a cool debate, but then they're still going at each other.
No, I'm not going at him. I'm not going at him. I'm just simply saying, whenever you want the rematch for the 5th and final one, Charlie, I'll be waiting.
Well, I was about to say the same thing because let's be honest. I said after I win the next time, you will know in your heart of hearts that you cannot beat me one-on-one.
Well,
here's the deal. You could beat me. I'm not saying Dan helped you. I'll retract my statement from earlier. You right now cannot beat you one-on-one.
You said
The thing is, Jordan. The thing is, if you come into these with a calm mind and a serious enough demeanor, you do well in these. But when you go into these guns blazing, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot.
I've already shot myself in the foot. It was a nail gun.
And from one of my greatest mentors, Raven. all I have to do, Jordan, when you're like that, is just go after your mind, and you screw yourself over. That's exactly what Dan did. I will give Dan the utmost credit. Dan did the one thing that you couldn't do, Jordan, in our past.
Charlie, face it. Just give it up. You lost to two men. Just admit defeat. You can't deny the truth.
But like I said, I stated a fact that you cannot beat me one-on-one.
But
so how you doing, Tom? You doing all right?
I'm actually looking at getting Cyberpunk 2077. That's what
But I was there.
Okay.
I'm here now, and here's the thing, Charlie.
So I guess down the road we're gonna have the trilogy match between J-Man and Hangman Charlie, one-on-one.
No help, just those two, one-on-one.
I agree. J-Man versus Charlie, I agree. That's gonna be good. That's a good television right there.
This is the unbiased host.
Can I be a judge in that?
Hold on. Can I look? The thing is, it's not going to be a debate because the thing is, last time we had a debate, it was on his terms. This time we had to do it because this had to be a neutral playing field. But now, if he wants a rematch, it has to be on my terms. And it ain't going to be a debate. It'll be on my terms. But don't worry. It'll be competitive. Don't worry.
What are you going to do, a singing contest then?
I beat him in that too.
Why did you reveal my plans?
I beat him in that too. I beat him in a rap battle.
I had a rap battle on my stream in October.
No, it ain't gonna be that.
Like the last two bouts that you guys have had, the last two bouts you guys have had have been debates. So the third bout has to be a debate. Like,
yeah.
No, it ain't back from debates. The thing is, okay, this is how it goes. One, I beat him in a comment section over, Len's Kitchens, one of his videos. He gave up. I still came out the victor.
You beat him because you talked so much he got tired?
Well, then again, he couldn't keep up.
Yeah, I never understand he counts as a victory because I didn't know who in the hell this guy was. And since at the time me and Lennon were not on the best of terms, I just thought there was no reasoning with this man. So I just said, screw it, I'm walking away. So really,
Charlie, you're no better. You fumbled over the questions. You doubled down. You even had Tom coaching you in the back and just still shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, I know that.
Plus, Hangman, aren't you cool with Lennon now?
Yeah. This was back late. What was it? Late 2019, I think, or 2020. I can't remember. But I never understood how he counted that as a victory because at the time I didn't know who in the hell this guy was.
That's because I was an entry to the Royal Rumble, a secret entry. But let me finish before someone interrupts me again.
Shut up, J-Man. Just kidding.
Okay, this is my stream. I do whatever I want.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, J-Man.
The thing is, okay, that's one. Now, you got back at me in the grade levels, so that makes it 1-for-1. Then there's that debate, on your channel, Charlie. That makes it 2-to-1. So now, as of tonight, that makes it 2-for-2. So technically, this doesn't have to be all debate.
Can't we just walk away with you two just stopping fighting with each other and let it go? Like y'all are even
please.
right now. Let it go.
I agree. Yeah, you are even. That's facts. I agree.
The only thing is they're like Shawn Michaels and Triple H. They're best friends, but they're bitter enemies. It's just like that, essentially.
And also, it's great entertainment.
It's like two hobos fighting over a sandwich.
It definitely is great entertainment.
Hey, look at it this way. It's better than the shit show that was going on earlier today on multiple channels. I will not get into it, but Jordan and I know exactly what we're talking about. This is some fun. This is actually some fun ribbing back and forth content instead of just, oh, shut the fuck up, you fucking piece of shit. Fuck you.
Well, speaking of good content, I was playing Mafia Definitive Edition on Twitch, having a fun old time.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
Fun, wholesome content on my channel. None of this trolling and yelling back and forth. Like
he parked the car at Harvard Yard and blew that shit up.
I accidentally shot Kel from Good Burger, and I didn't mean to do that. It was an accident. I was crying over his shoulder, over his body, and then I ran out into blazing fire and died. Sad ending.
What do you want?
David said, if you lose, good day, sir. Even though he had nothing to do with this. David the gamer.
I know,
3000.
David. Do you want me
future.
to take an example out of next? Let's see, what did he put? You lose. Oh yeah, he put that. Okay.
All right, but I think that this has been a good place to end this epic debate rematch.
Wait, we're ending the video.
No, we're going for another 3 hours. Yes, we're ending the video.
Okay. I was just gonna say if we're ending it, then I'll end it. And stay for the end because I gotta get going and get my sister situated. But anyway, go ahead.
But I think this is a good place to end the debate. Be sure to check these guys all out on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, wherever it is. They're probably there. Give them the support that they need. And we'll see you next time on the P1 channel. Until then, sign out. Bye-bye, everybody. Good night.
No.